referendum. We shouldn't have another referendum on the same issue.
Whatever the outcome, there's got to be a referendum. Remain should be an option, and the Labour Party will campaign for Remain. We have left the EU. There's no case for going back to the EU. We've had a referendum. We shouldn't have another referendum on the same issue. Whatever the outcome, there's got to be a referendum. Remain should be an option, and the Labour Party will campaign for Remain. We have left the EU. There's no case for going back to the EU. I oppose HS2 on cost and on merit. Every Labour leader since then, including me, I took over in 2018, has supported HS2, and we do support it. I'm not going to rank Jeremy Corbyn. He's a colleague, he's a friend, and he's led us through some really difficult times in the Labour Party.
He was never a friend.
No, not in the sense that we were, went to visit each other or anything like that. Trans rights are human rights, and I support the right to self-identification. We don't think that self-identification is the right way forward. I don't think you can simply do away with any assessment. And those assessments are appalling, and I would scrap them, just like Becky would. Scrap the assessments, scrap the sanctions, scrap universal credit. Freedom of movement will have to end as we leave the EU. We have to make the case for freedom of movement, and we have to make it strongly. Freedom of movement has gone, and it's not coming.
Well, goodbye to all that, as they say. The double dealing, the U-turning, the lying, the complete and utter shibboleths of Keir Starmer's reign as Prime Minister, which only lasted less than 2 years. A very good morning to you. It's Tuesday, the 23rd of June. I nearly said January. 23rd of June. And Keir Starmer isn't the Prime Minister anymore. Hey! And we were very privileged. Lee Nalalingam is here. We were very privileged yesterday to be able to bring it to everybody live around the world. And we had a massive audience for that, by the way. People were absolutely joining in their droves, because it was the thing that I certainly been waiting for 2 years. So I had a little split of champagne just as he announced that he was about to walk away. And how pathetic was it that in the end he tried to get the emotions going. Yeah. And at the end of his little speech, he said that he was going to try and be a fabulous husband to Vic, who's been his rock, apparently, throughout all of this, when he got deserted by all of his mates.
That's the thing, right?
And in his children, he's going to try and be the best dad ever. I mean, pathetic, just pathetic. He didn't have any tears for the farmers or the pensioners or the Chagos Islanders or anybody else that he screwed over. Lucy Connolly didn't care about her being able to be a good mother, or for her husband to be a good father, So screw him, as far as I'm concerned.
Yep, he only had tears for himself in the end.
And all these people out there saying what a great guy he is, and people like Andrew Marr, the usual kind of suspects, from the media, all very dignified farewell. There's nothing dignified about screwing up your job and having to leave because everybody hates you. There's nothing dignified about that at all. So let's get any mistakes made here. This guy was a complete and utter hopeless, hapless, useless individual who couldn't do the job that he was supposedly elected to do. And now he's gone. And now we get a different useless, hopeless, hapless individual who thinks he's entitled to be the Prime Minister of this country just because he's from North. Right?
Yeah, that pretty much sums up Burnham, it sums up Starmer.
That's the show, basically, today.
That is basically the show, I think. I mean, what the hell is going on? I'm glad Starmer's gone. I cannot...
Everyone's glad Starmer's gone.
What I couldn't believe was during his resignation speech, he was trying to list all of these things that he's apparently delivered.
Yes.
But if he was that good, he wouldn't have to resign, because, as you just said, everyone hates him.
Anyone with a sort of a decent view of the world would say to him, well, why are you resigning then? If everything's gone so well, why are you leaving?
Exactly. I did such a great job that the peasants are at the door with the pitchforks and the torchlights, ready to burn me out of my house.
And all these kind of intellectuals who say that, well, of course, Britain is now ungovernable. We've had 7 prime ministers since Brexit, and we can't basically run the country. It's ridiculous. The whole thing is a nonsense. The reason it's ungovernable is not because it's ungovernable. The reason it's ungovernable is because the people that we've put in to run it haven't been very good.
Such a terrible standard. I mean, I look at that when they say it is ungovernable, and look, everyone knows this isn't my day job, right? I leave here and then I go to a multi-billion-pound firm to do what I do.
Do real work.
Do real work. And I sit there and I look at this.
You're not supposed to agree with me, by the way. I mean, heaven's sake, you have your opportunity to say, no, this is very important work you're doing,
no,
Mike.
What you do, though, Mike, I've said to you off camera, in terms of how you manage all of this is incredible. Yeah. I could not pay attention to the many things you do and still keep a single train of thought. But I sit there and you look at anybody in the world I sit in.
Yeah.
It's basic decision making. It's basic accountability. It's setting priorities. It's having a strategy.
Yeah.
But we have, what I'd argue, 400 of our 600 MPs minimum.
Yeah.
Have never had a proper job.
No.
They've never been in any sort of management position in any company of any sort of size. No. And there are literally middle managers all over London that could do a better job than most of our government. Yeah. And most of them should be nowhere near government either, just to be clear. Yeah. And that is the problem with this country. I read on the way in this morning, we've now had, will be our fourth Prime Minister in less than 4 years. Yeah. 3 of them weren't even voted for, essentially. You know, they have no mandate. They were just kind of like, well, there you go, you have a go.
Exactly. And this is the thing. I mean, lots of people who say, oh, we must have elections all the time, every time we replace prime ministers. Actually, there's been quite a lot of prime ministers who did not get elected. Yep. Now, I'm not saying that's a good thing. I think there should be an election for Andy Burnham. I think he should, at the very least, there should be a leadership contest inside of Labour. Yep. And there may well still be one, because it may well be that Darren Jones or somebody can't decide. But I mean, they're both, neither one of them qualified either to do the job, but at least they should push him to the extent that we should find out what it is that he stands for, because he didn't say what he stood for when he stood in Makerfield. He didn't make any kind of policy commitments whatsoever. He U-turned on a load of stuff, but he didn't actually reveal, if he became Prime Minister, how he would govern. And
that's exactly it, because who is the real Andy Burnham? He was a Blairite. Yeah. He's been a Corbynista. Yeah. He's apparently now thrown himself in with the progressive left, way beyond that. Yeah. But then all of a sudden, to get elected, he then realised that he was standing in a seat that was very favourable to Brexit and reform, and so stopped talking about rejoining the EU and all of that stuff. Yeah. So, what does he stand for? I mean, when people were voting in 2024, they weren't thinking, you know what? That bloke in Manchester who's mayor. Yeah, that's who we want to get behind.
Right. Well, this is the only thing that people talk about, isn't it? Manchesterism, which is not, as far as I'm concerned, an ism that's worth talking about, right? Because Manchesterism could be many things to many people. And certainly there's nothing brilliant about Manchester that I would like to see replicated around Britain. You know, I don't want to see trams everywhere. I don't want to see traffic everywhere. I don't want to see scumbags everywhere like they have in Piccadilly Gardens every single night of the week. I don't want to see refugees lying around on the streets. You know, Manchester, to me, is not the way that it's being painted, as if Andy Burnham somehow resurrected it and it's this gleaming sepulchre on the hill. It's not. Yep. You know, Manchester is a pretty awful place.
I haven't been there recently.
Haven't you?
No, but I'll take your word for it.
They've got a couple of decent football teams, and they've got some very nice people, and they've got a reasonably sort of, shall we say, exciting nightlife. But it's not a place that you would want to replicate. Around the country.
I can see that. It reminds me a bit of when I went to Birmingham.
It's not very clean either.
It's. I think the worrying thing, though, is that seems to have become the UK as a whole, right? If you look at all of our metropolitan areas, you look at all of our cities, they're all kind of following a similar path. Yeah. And again, but Manchesterism, what does that even mean? I mean, how can the guy become Prime Minister?
Right. Well, he says,
and we don't even know what he's going to do.
Listen to somebody talking this morning about how, you know, he's talking about wanting to be the local kind of Prime Minister, the man who works for the local people of this country. He doesn't want to be an internationalist. He wants to sort of think about concentrating on making Britain better. All very well, but unfortunately, when you're the Prime Minister, you have to deal with people like Donald Trump. You have to deal with, various conflicts around the world. Yeah. You have to deal with the armed forces. You have to deal with, social security. You have to deal with national security. You know, it's a big job, and you can't just go, I don't know anything about that. You know.
Exactly, and you look at him, you look at his demeanour, you look at how he positions himself. He's very, for lack of a better word, beta, right? He's a very weak individual in terms of how he appears. And again, if you were going to be leader of this country and you have to sit in a room opposite Trump, opposite Xi, opposite Putin, they're going to eat him alive.
Of course they will. Absolutely right. But let's have a look. We should look at what Trump had to say yesterday, because he, of course, famously on Sunday night managed to announce that Keir Starmer was resigning before Keir Starmer.
He couldn't wait to get it out either, could he?
Before Keir Starmer announced he was resigning. And he's done a typical Trump here. He's kind of damned him with faint praise, hasn't he? Have a look at this.
Sir, you've been quite critical of Prime Minister Starmer, and he's now resigned. Your thoughts, and who would you like to see as the next Prime Minister?
Yeah, I was critical only from the set because I think he's a lovely man. But I said you're really messing up energy. You have windmills all over the place. In the meantime, you have the North Sea oil, and they won't let anybody drill. It's one of the great fields in the world, and they haven't even found most. You know that the UK buys much of its energy. You know where? Norway. You know where they get their oil? The North Sea. The UK has a much better portion of the North Sea. They don't want to do it for environmental purposes, okay? And I told him he's a very nice man. I mean, sort of a friend of mine. I mean, he was not good to us with NATO, Pete, right? He said, we can't use the island to land. That was the first. For a couple of weeks, he said, well, but ultimately I gave it to you. Now, that was a bad move. That hurt him badly. But I mean, I wish him well, but he's got two problems, energy and immigration and crime. But energy and immigration.
And he's a president
and he's, you know, he's really hurt himself very, very badly. Please.
I mean, you can't argue with any of that, can
No.
you? He's got two problems. Make it three. It's like the Spanish Inquisition. One, and that was fanatical devotion to net zero. You know, the guy has been a complete waste of space. Trump knows it, and you can see the little smile dancing across his lips.
Yeah.
He's a really nice guy, but yeah, really hurt himself there, you know, because he did. And he's right. How ludicrous is it that we get oil from Norway, we buy oil from Norway, where they're drilling it in the exact same field that we could be drilling it ourselves. So we wouldn't have to buy it from Norway. It's just incredible, isn't it? And immigration, of course, which he didn't fix. There's a story this morning in the papers saying 11,000 migrants across the Channel so far this year, which is slightly down on last year.
Oh, that's a huge success then, only 11,000.
But what we don't know is how many are now coming in by lorry, because only yesterday Shabana Mahmood had to say that she was going to change the one-in, one-out rule, because apparently the people they're sending back to France are now coming back on lorries. So, you know, the whole thing is falling down around his ears. But the thing that really, I think, upsets an awful lot of people as well is this entitled view that Andy Burnham has. The picture on the front pages of a lot of the papers this morning is him in the hall, the Westminster Hall, you know, doing this big selfie, holding up, celebrating his return to Westminster. And I mean, you know, I don't feel sorry for Keir Starmer, so don't get me wrong. But I mean, it's kind of undignified, it seems to me, for an MP to come down, walking into the chamber like he's some kind of conquering hero, you know, like the gladiator returning to Rome kind of thing. And it was really a little bit kind of, I thought, distasteful. Have a look at this when he comes in to be sworn in as MP.
Welcome to Andy Burnham, member for Makerfield.
Rome is saved.
I swear by Almighty God that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles, his heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God. Naughty boy.
Turn the water into wine.
I mean, I find that quite nauseating, to be honest. You know, the idea that they're all sitting there cheering him on like he's, like I say, some kind of new champion who's appeared to save the country. The country is in a really bad way, right? The country has got an economy going down the gurgler faster than you can say net zero. It's got a terrible immigration problem. It's got a terrible crime problem. And they're all sitting there laughing and cheering as if, you know, isn't it great? Isn't it fantastic to have Andy Burnham back? And you see at the end there, Lindsay Hoyle shaking him warmly by the hand because no doubt they'll be cooking up all sorts of things together. This coronation that Burnham wants to try and kind of establish is interesting because also when he walked in to Parliament yesterday, there was no one from the Starmer cabinet on the front bench. Not one of them was there, right? And then as he kind of moved into the next part of the day, the hall, to do that big selfie picture, which was a bit like Kevin Spacey's one they did at the Oscars, remember? Maybe he'll suffer the same fate. Suddenly you could see people like Rachel Reeves appearing in the background. And then suddenly,
Can I keep my job?
There was Stella Creasy, there was, you know, what's his face? Peter Kyle. No, Peter Kyle wasn't there actually. But there was, you know, Angela Rayner appeared, and you know they're all sort of. It's like that thing. I remember there was a story told about Don King, you know, the boxing promoter, and it was an interview I did. I actually did an interview with Leon Spinks when
Wow.
When Leon Spinks fought Muhammad Ali the second time.
Yeah.
And Leon Spinks the second time when he lost, he said he went to the fight with Don King, and he said as the fight went on. And as Muhammad Ali looked like he was becoming the winner, he was winning and he was beating Leon Spinks up. He said every time he saw Don King, he was moving closer and closer to Ali's corner, right? And by the end of the fight, he left with Ali. And he said, I was left with nothing. He said, I came in a limo. He said, I had to get a taxi home because Don King had just gone and left. And all he had was his fur coat. And all the girls had gone. All the money had gone, you know, and it feels a bit like that with Starmer. You know, here are all these politicians moving across the aisle.
And they are. It's just sycophantic.
They're so sycophantic. It's a pretty awful thing to watch, actually.
But it's also a perfect example of what politics and our politicians in this country are. It's just a game to them. They don't care about actually delivering anything.
Of course not.
It's about taking the right pictures. It's about trying to say the right things, getting yourself a nice position in cabinet or on this committee. And it's the thing that really gets me is that as much as I hate this Labour government, it is not just this Labour government, it is almost their entire political class.
It is the entire political class. This is where reform say they need to cut through. I mean, Nigel Farage was getting a lot of jip from people yesterday because he says what we don't need is yet another professional politician in Downing Street. And of course, all the professional politicians said to him, but you're a professional politician. That wasn't the point he was making. You know, he might be a professional politician now, but his point is that he wasn't always, and that he's worked in the financial sector pretty much all of his life.
He has been, and there is I think it's places like China and Singapore and so on where they actually have rules where you have to be a certain age, you have to have a certain background before you even become eligible to be a member of parliament or to hold a government position. And you've got to make sure you get it right so that people from all kind of backgrounds can rise. But there's got to be that.
I don't think we've ever had a worse collection of MPs.
I can't think of it.
Particularly in the government and particularly on the side of Labour at the moment, who have I don't think any of them have ever worked in the private sector.
I don't think they have. I think if you look at almost that entire front bench, I think you are correct. And
I'm talking about not just the front bench, I'm talking about the back bench as well.
The back benches.
The back benches as well. They've all come from the charity sector. They've all worked
it's something like over 200 of them.
It's
over 200 of the new MPs come from, it was either career politicians or charity sector. But if you compare, I mean, it's a very polarising figure now, but if you look back to that Labour government under Blair, they had such heavyweights. Whether you agreed with them or disagreed with them, they were so capable and so effective. Everything we now suffer from is a result of them. But they had such high quality individuals. And these people wouldn't have even been their EAs. Right? They would. We've fallen so far.
We have.
It is representative of the decline of the country. Because you essentially get what you pay for.
And people say that, but I mean, I don't go along with this idea that you have to pay them more money because they get paid quite a lot of money. And I know that there will be people in London in expensive, houses and working in the financial sector who will say, well, 100,000 is not that much. It's a lot of money to most people.
It's a lot of money to most people.
And it's a lot of money. And plus, in addition to that, they do get massive expenses. They get the ability to live in a second home. They get the ability to charge everything that they do to the taxpayer. So I'm not buying that they should get more money at all. I don't think that's right.
No, when I say the, you get what you pay for, I'm just talking about in terms of how our entire system has operated.
Oh yeah,
right?
no, I'm not saying you're arguing for that. I'm just saying that I don't go along with that argument.
Although I would argue for that overall. I think if you think about the UK, we're a £3 trillion economy.
Yeah.
That's the same size as Apple.
Yeah.
So we're essentially, the Prime Minister is essentially the equivalent of the CEO of Apple.
Yeah.
And for 100 grand, 150 grand, whatever he's paid,
Yeah.
you wouldn't get someone 8 levels down.
Yeah, but the
from
guy
that
who runs
CEO.
Apple makes an awful lot more money. And he doesn't just spend money, which is what this lot do.
Which is what that lot do.
By all means, put them on a
Put them on a performance-related bonus. Again, that's what they do in Singapore. The Chancellor has a target, so you get whatever your base salary is, and then if you hit like 5% growth,
again,
then
listening to punditry yesterday, people say, well, the thing is Andy Burnham can't do very much because we haven't got any money. Well, there's a reason we haven't got any money. It's because they waste so much of it.
They do.
I mean, you know about better than anyone.
They do.
But let me just do a quick poll, because we've got a poll out there now saying who should resign next. You know, Keir Starmer, although Poochers already wants Starmer back because he hates Burnham so much that he just hates. Well, we'll show you why you should hate him. Who should resign next? Rachel Reeves, David Lammy, Andy Burnham, or Ed Miliband? At the moment, Rachel Reeves coming in with 41%, very much in the lead, and Ed Miliband on 26% coming in second. Because it's going to be a horrible kind of next couple of weeks. You know, the way that things have been mapped out, basically, Keir Starmer has said that he's going to hang around until the 9th of July, at which point they're going to open, I think, the
nominations.
The floodgates for whoever wants to be the next Prime Minister, right? However, wonder if Burnham is still doing his morning jog. Yeah, well,
It sums it up.
it does sum it up,
he
doesn't
lives
it?
in London now, he can't do that.
Well, and also, where is he in London? Is he living in his flat? The one that he bought on the taxpayer, the one that he rents out.
The one that he bought for an absolute fraction of
exactly
the
right,
cost.
and that we probably paid the interest on more than likely. Big question is this: if nobody puts themselves up to run against him, he could be the Prime Minister by, they reckon, July the 16th.
And that's just not right. Is it?
Which doesn't seem right to me. I think he's got to have a general election. I think he will push for one. He may not do it straight away, but I think he'll do it this year. That's my prediction.
I think he has to. He has to. I mean,
but not just that he has to. But he won't do it out of any sense of duty or decency. He'll do it because he thinks he can beat reform. Because he's conceited enough to think that by winning Makerfield, he's now the king of Labour, of Britain, as opposed to just the king of the North.
That would be his thinking. Like, if I was a Labour strategy person right now, I would be thinking, call an immediate general election, capitalise on this, because the longer he is exposed, it is going to be 3 months until there is the new set of growth forecasts where we're in a recession.
The economy's going to get worse.
There's going to be another, horrible, horrific crime committed or so on. And he's going to have the exact same response as Starmer, because they're all the same. And we were back to where we started. So his only chance by 5 years.
Not in defence of Starmer, but sort of in blaming Starmer, I would say that Starmer, amongst all of them, was the most authoritarian that we've ever seen. And he was very much a man who did not understand the British people and would more likely be wanting to lock them up and arrest them. I mean, don't forget, he arrested people at airports. He arrested Graham Linehan at an airport, armed police, for a tweet. He put Lucy Connolly in prison for a tweet. There were Alison Pearson arrested for a tweet. There was an awful lot of that going on.
There was.
And so make no mistake, I'm very happy that Keir Starmer's gone, because he was a ghastly, horrible, nasty individual. None of this. I'll tell you what I've got here. This will make you laugh. Where is he? Let me find it. John Sopel, the world's worst journalist, who gets basically everything wrong. He said yesterday, after Keir Starmer finished his speech, a speech of great dignity and even more pain and probably anger. So I retweeted. I said, John Sopel, defender of Hugh Edwards, gets it wrong every time.
And that is the key, defender of Hugh Edwards as well. It's can we just start it all again? Can we just get rid of all of these people? Just make them all resign.
Let's have a general election and get reforming. Let's see how that goes.
That is the plan, I think. We definitely need a reform government. The only way this gets fixed is with a reform government.
Yeah. Exactly right. We've got a big show coming up today, by the way. We've got Misley Mandarin coming on from the Chagos Islands, who last time we had him on, when I said, what would you like to tell Keir Starmer to do? And he said, resign. Yeah. So he must be a happy bunny. Also, we're going to get Steve Baker in former Cabinet Secretary, Richard Tice from Reform, Alt Mehmet is here, Claire Pearson as well, Ellie Hodges, and Intel Lady. Should we play a bit of Intel Lady?
I was going to say, who's on the show tomorrow? None other than ex-Prime Minister
Liz Truss is on the show tomorrow. Yeah, absolutely right. And do you know who's coming in on Thursday?
No.
Pat Cash.
Oh, yes.
Pat Cash.
Is he going to climb over the chair?
Yeah, I hope so, yeah. Charlotte suggested I get a black and white headband to wear for when he comes in. Nice. Because Pat Cash, well, not only was a great tennis player and a fantastic commentator, but he was very much against the whole lockdown scenario. So he's going to be very interesting. So I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, Liz Truss, great week, by the way. Great guest.
Sounds incredible.
So here's Intel Lady talking yesterday as Angela Rayner after the coronation of Andy Burnham.
Hiya, it's former Deputy Prime Minister, proud Northerner from a working class background, basic instinct enthusiast, and now part-time MP and full-time keynote speaker at conferences, Angela Rayner, and welcome to another no-brainer with Angela Rayner. Well, I've got to start by saying congratulations to our Andy. Well done, our Andy. I knew you would do it. I went out on the streets of Makerfield, knocking on doors and chatting to loads of people who said they were defo going to vote us Labours because they can see that clearly we've been doing a cracking job and that they were very happy to swap one us Labour for another us Labour because it just made sense. So congratulations to our Andy, and congratulations to the people of Makerfield for voting for hope. That's what we've gone with. The people of Makerfield voted for hope. You did. That's what you did. You thought, this last us Labour, there was a bit of hope, there was a percentage of hope, but this new us Labour, Andy, he brings, 40-50% more hope. So let's get him in instead, because that makes perfect sense. And that's what this is all about, everything making absolute perfect sense. So I'm dead chuffed for our Andy, and I cannot wait to see him again in Westminster. You never know. He might end up in a more prominent position soon, and if he does, he's going to have a cracking front bench there. He is. I've been chatting with him, and I've made a few suggestions, and I quite fancy being Foreign Secretary, because you know what I'm like when I go abroad. Everybody absolutely loves me. I party it up. I impress everyone. People love my personality, and they think, yeah, I like her, so I would probably make a good Foreign Secretary. Just think about it. Don't put me back on the houses because I didn't manage to build the 1.5 million that I promised. So maybe not back in that role, but defo Foreign Secretary, because I really like going abroad. I do. I love it. I was made for it. Anyway, think about it, Andy. So I have been very, very busy. I've been doing the conference scene. I did the Property Mark 1 scene because, as you know, I know a lot about houses. I've been built a few. And I care very much about renters' rights and making sure that landlords are punished to the fullest extent of the law wherever possible.
Over in the background as well,
so it is really important that I
bottles of wine.
Made a bit of money by doing the keynote.
Fantastic, absolutely fantastic. We'll be talking to Intel Lady a little bit later on. Cindy says this on the super chats. Mike, do you think Andy Bum will make it all the way to Prime Minister? If so, how long will he last? And how does it feel to have the #1 show? He'll always be my #1. That's very kind. Yeah, it's great. I mean, we did really well yesterday. Had huge numbers, and I imagine we'll do the same today as well. This one from Dr. Evested. Is that right? Today's a great day. No more Starmer. It is. I mean, as I said yesterday, I've been waiting 2 years for this. So you better believe I'm going to celebrate it for quite some time to come. And while I agree with Pooch that Burnham is even more ridiculously annoying, that doesn't mean that we want Starmer back. By no stretch of the imagination. Starmer has shot his bolt.
I think that's going to be your highest rated show, Mike. You're going to be doing a show in a year's time of shouting, Starmer, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. Let's see, what else have we got? We've got Zia Youssef on Starmer, number 13. Should we have a go at that?
Reform's slogan in the local elections last month was vote reform, get Starmer out. Well,
I will resign as leader of the Labour Party.
Boy, does Nigel Farage deliver on his promises. Starmer refused to stop the boats, refused to deport illegal migrants, raised your taxes, sent your energy bills through the roof, clamped down on free speech, tried to impose digital ID, started to take away jury trials, prioritised foreign nationals over British people, and jailed people who criticised him online. But here's the problem. Labour are about to coronate a new Prime Minister who is nothing more than Starmer in jeans. Andy Burnham wants to raise your taxes. Andy Burnham wants to welcome illegal migrants.
We've always played a part in terms of welcoming people in the past. We stand ready to do so going forward.
He doesn't know what a woman is. He wants to rejoin the European Union. He wants to keep the mad net zero taxes on your energy bills. I could go on. Burnham has no manifesto. He has no mandate. He is another career politician being foisted on you without your consent. Just 0.03% of the British public voted for him. He is nothing more than another career politician foisted on you without your consent. So here's my warning to Burnham. The average tenure of a Prime Minister foisted on the British public without a general election is less than 2 years. And when the British voters do get a chance to go to the ballot box, they are booted out of office with an almighty thud. That's why Andy Burnham must follow his own advice from 2022 and call a general election.
I think that's right. He must call a general election, and I think he will. Dawn says, happy birthday to me, 65 today. Starmer finally going was the best present ever. It's not bad, is it? Not a bad way to start the week either. But can you imagine what it's going to be like now for Starmer inside Downing Street, asking people to do things? I mean, we found out yesterday that already people are shunning him, right? Ed Miliband doesn't take his calls. Rachel Reeves probably stopped talking to him. I think Yvette Cooper told him to go. So there's really nobody over whom he's got any kind of, agency whatsoever. Nobody's going to do what he wants.
Exactly
I mean, you know from the private sector, if you've got a boss who's leaving,
as soon
as he's announced that he's leaving, you don't do anything for him.
Yep, exactly that. There will be no one doing anything. Although you could argue, have they done anything? Would they be doing anything anyway? Everything he tried to put through, he didn't necessarily get
this is
through.
the problem, though, because of the sort of the uselessness of the government, they haven't really done much for the last several months.
No, can you imagine? He's got an overwhelming majority.
Yeah.
He couldn't get any of his key things through.
No.
The digital ID, the assisted suicide, all of that kind of stuff. Maybe the welfare reforms, all because they were all fundamentally terrible ideas, to be fair. But if you've got 400, and it's a lame duck. We have now, as a country, another 2 months, 3 months. They go on recess in August. Yeah. So we have another 3 months of basically the people in charge
nothing happening.
doing nothing
well,
at all.
He came back from the G7, didn't he, declaring with his chest fully sort of puffed out, I'm going to hold another EU summit. Well, apparently that's been cancelled now because the EU summit was going to take place in July, and the belief is that, one, he won't be Prime Minister in July anyway, and Burnham doesn't want to do it. So already the wheels of government have kind of fallen off. There's literally nothing happening.
All fall off. And again, this is the fourth Prime Minister in less than 4 years.
Yeah.
3 of them not elected, assuming it's Burnham.
Yeah.
It's just not good enough.
No.
It's, they are taking us for mugs.
And the reason that many of the previous Prime Ministers have failed is they're all different reasons. It's not as if, this idea that we're an ungovernable country is nonsense. The fact is that people have left the office for all sorts of different reasons, and largely due to their own incompetence.
Largely. And it comes back to, it's just that basic set of skills. It is the ability to lead, the ability to set strategy, the ability to govern.
Right.
That's what I want from the people in charge, is competence to govern.
Well, also, how about setting goals and actually achieving them, as opposed to saying, I'm going to do this, and then not doing it? Or saying, I'm not going to do that, and then doing
it's like Bridget Phillipson with the 6,500 new teachers. She's got 1,900 less now.
Yeah.
And did a load of really, really bad PR to claim that she had somehow hired 70% of her target.
Yeah, right.
And it is just
well, that whole, again,
shambles.
more strategy, which they got completely wrong. Putting VAT on private schools was a ridiculously stupid idea, because all that happened was that a load of people who would have sent their kids to private school now send them to state school, which are now overrun with numbers because they can't cope.
And what I found is they've actually now paying to do research on their policies after they've implemented them.
Yeah.
So the DWP, for example, I've got to put this out in a week or so's time, but the DWP has just paid a load of research to find out about all of its changes to sick pay and all of that. And, they're like, we put this in place in April. We should probably do some research and see if it might work. And it's just, that is the problem, and I'm a broken record, but it comes back to the same point again and again and again. It doesn't matter what you look at, and something I'm going to be sharing tomorrow morning, Mike, exclusive for you. The government has now fouled audit for the 3rd year in a row.
Has it really?
The National Audit Office published the report last week. So for the 3rd year in a row, the whole government has fouled its audit.
So you mean the government examination of the government's
their
funds
finances
and their spending
has
not passed muster?
The auditors have issued what is called a disclaimer of opinion, which basically means the auditors have gone, there's no way we're signing that off, mate.
Because we just don't believe it.
Right? And when you read into the report, and again I'll put the full details out for those interested tomorrow, but over 400 local authorities just didn't provide any information for the audit. They're just like, nah, can't be bothered. And that is it. We have government by this class of people across political parties who don't give a damn, don't think they're responsible for anything, just want a nice title.
Russell Quirk, who is going to be doing shows, has been doing shows mid-morning today. Kelvin McKenzie actually returns to do his show at 10 o'clock. But he said to me, because he's now on Essex County Council, he had a conversation with a couple of people there in a committee meeting about spending on something, and they went, it's only 8 million. And he was like, what do you mean it's only 8 million? Only 8 million in most people's parlance is an awful lot of money. Whereas if you work in a council, you just kind of write it off as if it's, the lunch money.
You write it off. You write it off like that. And I know a lot of people who work in the consulting industry. And one of them was sharing to me, they actually prefer working with the public sector over the private sector, because in the private sector, you have to put together a business case and prove that what you're going to sign off will deliver an ROI.
But in the public sector,
they've got a
everybody
budget.
Gets paid. Well, did you see that story yesterday in the Telegraph? We didn't really get to it yesterday because there was too much going on with Starmer. But basically, there are NHS consultants working on strike days getting £6,000 a day.
That sounds right.
Right? £6,000 a day. Now, even in the highfalutin world of consultants, management consultants, I mean, £3,000 a day is quite a lot for them. So for a doctor to be making £6,000, that's ridiculous. Totally mad.
That's it. I mean, I know a few people who are charging £1,000 an hour, but yes, it's it's incredible.
I mean,
amount of money.
don't get me started on consultants because they're not my favourite people. Because I can tell you a story about consultants. When I was working in the newspaper business, I was working on one particular newspaper, and these consultants came in. And we used to, in those days, have photographers, which no newspaper has anymore because they just hire freelancers. But we used to have staff photographers, and they would sit at a photographer's table. And the consultant said, what are they doing there? I said, well, they're waiting for a job. Well, why aren't they out taking pictures? And I said, what do you want them out taking pictures of? And they said, well, shouldn't they be out taking pictures? And I'm like, well, no, because if Windsor Castle goes on fire, which it did last week, they need to get to Windsor. And then they get in a car, they go to Windsor, and they take pictures. What they don't do is go out and take random pictures of the London Eye, in case we want to put it in the paper. And they went, oh. I said, what did you do last? And it turned out their previous consultancy was with a brewery.
That sounds
and you
about
go,
right.
well, what the hell do you know about the newspaper business? You don't know anything.
Yep, there were definitely a few of those consultants, to be fair. I may have worked with a few in the past.
You may well have. So as ever, you've got to be aware. Now, we've got to talk about the weather before I let you go, because I was awoken this morning to what can only be described as the largest thunderclap I think I've ever heard. And I've heard a few, right? But it was right over my house. It's 4:20 this morning, southeast London. And I was literally, I was shaking out of bed. It was that loud. And then there was this spectacular sort of lightning show and rolling thunder for about a good 25 minutes, pouring rain. Pooch said he never even saw any of it because I was feeling bad because I thought he was going to have to drive through it all the way up from the Shires, and by the time I was coming in here, it had stopped, and the sky was kind of emerging as a blue, kind of lovely blue, but quite an extraordinary thunderstorm.
Extraordinary thunderstorm. Woke me up at the same time. I guess I'm on the other side of the river to you. Exact same thing. It was bloody loud. And I was worried about my daughter because, I've got a 5-year-old, and I thought that she doesn't like loud noises.
No.
And I thought
Did she wake up?
No, luckily she slept all the way through it. But it was loud enough that I wondered what it was. It
reminded me, I said to Pooch, it reminded me of those big storms you get in America. They get these massive kind of, thunderstorm systems coming through. And normally in summer in New York, when it would get really, really hot, suddenly the weather would just break and you could almost see the thunderclouds coming. from a long way away coming up the sort of
It's
East Coast.
It's the rolling.
But yeah, just amazing. But of course, naturally, I was told this morning, I think, that the Heathrow Express is shut because of flooding. Several roads are closed because of flooding.
Yep.
Lots of traffic jams going on because, of course, it's the wrong kind of rain.
Wrong kind of rain, wrong kind of snow, wrong
and of
kind of
course,
whatever.
not only will the rain have not done anything for the water companies, they've already got South East Water and Southern Water have already been telling people in the South East, please don't use water if you can avoid it.
Yep, which, and then they put everyone's bills up again. It is, do you know there is 4 million people in debt on their water bills?
Oh, really? Because they're so expensive?
Because they're so expensive now, 4 million households.
So what happens to those debts then?
They go on, and eventually they, there's just a lot of people that can't pay. So,
right. But I mean, will the water company take them to court? Will the water company
they will try, but
try and prosecute them?
Because it's water. I don't think they can. They can't shut off people's water.
Right. So I mean, because they had to change the law, didn't they, on electricity bills, that you couldn't cut people's electricity off, and presumably you can't cut people's water off.
Exactly that. So 4 million people in debt there. 7.2 billion is the total debt now of people on their energy and water bills.
Yeah.
And they want to, so it's we can't. I could just go on about this all day.
Well, water's a particularly...
It makes me sad. There's part of me that wishes I never started looking at any of this stuff. I preferred the ignorance.
I know. It's the same with me. You know, when you start looking into things and you start going, oh, crikey, nightmare. Anyway, Lee, good to see you.
Always good to see you, mate.
Nice to have you on, as ever. Lee Allingham there with his take on Keir Starmer's departure. I think we're all very, very pleased to see him go. The problem is, will Andy Burnham be any better? Or will he actually be worse? Alan Johnson, the former cabinet member of the Blair government, has actually called for a snap election and said that he has to be brave and he has to go for it. So let's see if he does. We're going to be talking to Lee Harris shortly, but first of all, I think what we ought to do is have some news, shall we, with Edward Hughes?
I'm Edward Hughes, the most authoritarian PM of all time. Two-tier Keir has resigned after less than 2 years in office, citing mounting pressure within the Labour Party, or the fact he's just an idiot. Greater Manchester's former mayor Andy Burnham, Chancellor and freshly elected as an MP, is the clear favourite to become the UK's next Prime Minister, potentially within weeks, with strong backing including from West Streeting. Meanwhile, Britain is sweltering under a major heatwave. The Met Office has issued rare extreme heat warnings, with temperatures forecast to break June records, possibly hitting 38 to 39 degrees Celsius in parts of England and Wales. Other headlines include former DUP leader Geoffrey Donaldson, found guilty of child sexual offences, and calls for more LGBT veterans to claim compensation before a deadline. Remember to like and subscribe. Laters, Tigers.
Edward Hughes there with the news. Thank you very much indeed. We've got Lee Harris to talk to very shortly. Richard Tice coming up as well. This from Chris. It says Starmer's farewell speech was an insult to us British people. He was painting a picture of pure lies of what he's achieved, what a feeble man or woman he is, and his pathetic tears of a clown. Absolutely right. And that's entirely what I was saying yesterday and entirely what the British public thinks. And the idea that the MPs of this country and the sort of political establishment and the media establishment, which we saw yesterday out in force, you know, sucking up to Andy Burnham, making out like he was... I mean, they put helicopters up as if they were chasing O.J. Simpson coming down on the Aviva train from Manchester, which, by the way, was 20 minutes late, just to prove how great nationalisation is on the train service. So he now qualifies to get a refund on his ticket because he was able to get in something like 20 minutes late, as I say. And then helicopters following the taxi that Burnham was in to Westminster. I mean, it was just pathetic. And they just don't get it. People are sick to death of politicians in this country. They're sick to death of the Labour government. They're sick to death of Starmer. And they will be sick to death of Andy Burnham. It makes absolutely no difference. You know what we should do? Should we play a bit of Russell Kane just before we speak to Lee, who's very funny, as Andy Burnham? Check this out.
Which one is that?
That's number 3.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
Hi guys, Andy Burnham here. I thought I'd jump on this bloody internet quickly as I'm getting all kinds of accusations thrown at me that I've nipped down to London just because Keir Starmer's resigned. Couldn't be further from the flipping truth. The honour of being sworn in as the MP for Makersfield is why I'm down there. Am I interested in getting into number 10? No, I'm interested about whether the new Tesco will be built at Winstanley. I'm interested in oral Billinge? What about the disability lift at Platt Bridge? These are the things that interest me, and I popped my black t-shirt on, and I'm not going to lie, I had a Tesco meal deal on the way down because you get the free drink. And that's what I'm like. I was sitting with an old lady today on the train, Doris, and she said, Andy, why are you going down to London? And I said, Doris, I'm not. I'm here to represent the North. I'm staying. I have to go down to the bloody smoke to get myself sworn in. Not by choice. Sorry, I'm in the Commons bloody library. All right, Angela, I'll be two minutes. 2 minutes. So put your mind at rest. Andy's going nowhere. We need more playgrounds in Hindley and Gravy, of course. So anyone who thinks I've gone down to London just to see what Keir Starmer's seat feels like when I seize power from him with my army, when I unleash the Kraken of Angela Rayner onto the balls of anyone who messes with me, I'll fucking cut you! You fucking cut! I'm straight back up tonight on the 5:30 because I've got a meeting about using the unused town hall in Bryn into a karate centre for disabled and blind children so they can do Northern karate. So don't worry, Andy's going nowhere. Whoever's Prime Minister, it's no bloody business of mine. Right, I'm off now.
Isn't that great? Russell Kane, absolutely, I'd take my hat off to that. That is absolutely fabulous. He's absolutely captured Burnham and his two-faced absolute hypocrisy and kind of ridiculousness at being the local man. Mike, I don't think Burnham paid for his own rail ticket. Yeah, you're probably right, Barbara. We probably paid for it. Well, maybe we should apply for the refund then, because it's out.
Recess, Mike, in August.
Yeah, well, we should. Absolutely right. Let's talk to Lee Harris and see what he thinks of it all. Lee, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. I'm still laughing at that Russell Kane clip.
That's brilliant,
absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. He's totally got him in one, this kind of humble brag, oh, I'm just an ordinary bloke, me, what am I like? It's all that kind of, oh, I just have a Tesco sandwich, a meal deal, I mean, these people are a joke.
It's perfect.
This guy read English literature at Cambridge, right? And he makes out that he's like this Everton fan that just likes going to the footy. And you kind of go, look, there's nothing wrong with doing English literature, but just don't pretend to be something you're not. Stop pretending that you're just this ordinary bloke. You've been involved in politics since the age of about 15. He's been involved in government since the late 90s when he was working for Chris Smith in the Department for Media, Culture and Sport in the Blair government. He's a complete and utter, inside the beltway politician, always has been, always will be.
Yeah. And do you know what? When you said about Russell Kane doing that impression of him, which sums him up, it does sum him up perfectly. Yeah. That's one thing I've always found about Andy Burnham. I find him incredibly untrustworthy. I know that's a very typical trait for a politician, but I mean, it's really kind of hypersensitive with him. As I mentioned to you before, the incident where he was stood on the town hall steps and completely fabricated that entire incident where he pretended to receive a text message from government about the budget amount or whatever. I just, it was that moment on, I just thought that guy, because I kind of liked him before that. He's kind of unassuming he's not very offensive. Not compared to like Keir Starmer, who's just visibly offensive. But we'll probably think the same about Andy Burnham, I'm sure, in a few days. But yeah, Russell Kane, I think, made me laugh so much because it does summarise exactly what I think of Andy Burnham. I mean, there's people on the left who I've spoken to in the last 24 hours who say they do not trust him at all. In fact, I'm hearing worse things from my Labour contacts about Andy Burnham than I am about Keir Starmer.
Yeah, well, I think there's no question. I mean, Keir Starmer was a massively useless Prime Minister. And he wasn't actually very good at being devious, to be honest. I mean, even though he was crap, he wasn't that devious. He didn't get it, and he made terrible mistakes, and he understood the British public very much. But what he wasn't really was particularly devious, because he always thought what he was doing was right. Andy Burnham, I suspect, knows what he's doing is wrong, and so he has to be devious in order to get it through.
Completely. And that's the difference between, that's a really good point. The main difference in terms of what's bad about them is Andy Burnham is a competent liar. And that's what because you remember I was sat in the studio with you, Mike, and we were discussing the Peter Mandelson thing about how quickly Keir Starmer's lies and excuses just fall apart. He is a very, very bad liar for someone who's good at process, apparently. Although I'm not convinced that's the case. I'm not quite sure what Keir Starmer is good at. But Andy Burnham is very, very good at lying. There is absolutely no doubt about that. I mean, he had me convinced about this whole town hall text message thing. It was only when they had Robert Jenrick in the studio and he just stood there and said, everything you've watched was fake. And I think it was Kay Burley who was sat with, and she sort of said, "What? So you're saying he's showboating?" And he wouldn't sort of agree that Andy Burnham was showboating, but he said, "Put it this way, I just phoned him at 2:00 and he already knew." So
yeah,
so the
you
guy,
you get the sense that everything that he does has been very much sort of. What shall we say? Curated is the word that they like to use these days. I mean, apparently every single outfit that he wears has been sort of, recommended to him by some kind of stylist. I mean, now presumably he can afford to get free clothes from Lord Ali now that he's going to be, leading the party, because he needs to get somebody to sort him out for a proper suit, because he put that suit on yesterday. I was urging him to wear a shirt and tie to go to Parliament. Thank God that he did. But it didn't look like it was his. It looked like he borrowed it from somebody who was slightly bigger than him.
Yeah, I found this whole thing quite unedifying, actually. Look, I've tried not to be hypocritical about this. Obviously, being a Conservative member, I voted for Boris when we swapped leaders, and I was there when we swapped leaders and everything. We do in this country vote for the party. We don't vote for a person. Therefore, if that leader swaps, but I think it should be done on a case-by-case basis. And if the new leader, for example, like Andy Burnham, comes in and he does want to do something very different to what the party was elected for, I think on those circumstances, he should absolutely call for a general election. Because let's face it, I mean, we can go through the Twitter feed of almost every single Labour MP over the last 5 years, and they would have said exactly the same thing. Angela Rayner was incredibly vocal about, if you swap prime ministers, then you should have a general election. And I think that it's, what worries me, Mike, is one thing that's massively lacking in our politics is honour. We seem to have lost this ability for people to, fall on their sword honourably. It doesn't happen anymore. So it does worry me a little bit. But it's their prerogative. The Conservatives did it. Labour. It would be wrong of me, because I remember sitting in studios having conversations with people about why it's legitimately okay for the Conservatives to swap leader, and so I can't really say anything different. But I do think that even though I agree that we vote for a party and they can do this officially, they're not breaking any rules. Then if there is a mandate change, right? So if there is a change of plans, then they should have to go to the country, in my view. Boris did it. Boris went out and got his mandate. I think Andy Burnham should probably do the same thing. And to be honest, I have heard a rumour that he could call a snap election.
Oh, I think he wants to. I think he absolutely thinks that he will win it, because he's that conceited, because he's taken this, Makerfield victory and transposed it into, I'm the saviour of the Labour government and the saviour of the Labour movement. And I believe he probably thinks he'll catch Reform on the hop. And I think Reform would probably welcome an election at this point.
I think so too. I think Farage came out strong with some strong messaging yesterday to say that, they are demanding an election. I'll be honest though, yes, I would quite like Reform to win that election, or at least batter the left into the point where the right would take power. I'm just not sure they will do it. I just don't think that the Labour Party will do it. Someone's going to sit him down and say, I don't know if you've seen the polls, Andy, but we'll get battered if we call an election now. So there's just this kind of self-preservation thing about that I just don't think they'll do it. This is Labour we're talking about. They aren't as honourable as the Conservatives. If you think about just certain little things that have happened.
It's the usual stuff from the be kind left. They're the most horrible people you ever come across. They're ghastly, they're hypocritical, they're kind of insanely jealous of success. They hate anyone that makes any money, as long as it's not them, because they're quite happy for them to make a load of money. I mean, look at the likes of Angela Rayner, Rachel Reeves. They go after anyone that makes a crust and tax them to within an inch of their lives. And then they go off and have, expensive holidays, borrow people's multi-million-pound houses to go and stay in, have expensive cars that drive them around, and chauffeurs and all that. They're absolutely ridiculous. And they're also really, really vindictive against people as well, as Keir Starmer was, which is why nobody should feel sorry for him.
No, I completely agree. It's the moral high ground and hypocrisy that I can't stand, the combination of those two things at the same time. And what immediately comes to mind, one of the best examples of this was actually quite recently, where Keir Starmer had broken the ministerial code. He had misled the House, but he whipped his entire all of his MPs to not put him through to the. So they voted to not put him through to the Privileges Committee. Now, if you compare that to Boris Johnson, Boris did not whip any of his MPs. He allowed a free vote. He had the guts to face the music effectively in an honourable way. Yeah. Say what you like about Boris Johnson, but that's what he did. And I actually do think that most Conservative leaders would have done that because they do have this kind of sense of honour, whereas you just don't have any of that with the Labour Party. No. They are genuinely, look, they're both entitled. The Conservatives are a bunch of entitled in the same way, but it's the moral high ground combined with the hypocrisy and the high, getting on their high horse about, and that's just been the story of Keir Starmer's government. And there is, I was thinking to myself just before I came on, I am, even though the guy's still in place, I am still slightly relieved that he is gone. I'm just because Burnham is unknown, right? Effectively, we've all got our ideas about how Burnham is going to be. I think he's going to be terrible. I think he's probably going to be worse than Keir Starmer because, like I said, he is a competent liar, right? So he's going to have the ability, I think, to keep the media in the palm of his hands and manage the optics far better than Keir Starmer. There's one thing, Andy Burnham, I would probably imagine, has a better sense of politics than Keir Starmer. And that was another thing that stood out over Keir Starmer's very short and painful premiership. The guy just does not understand politics, like at all. No. He has no sense for it at all.
And he doesn't understand Britain. Listen, Lee, we've got to leave it there, I'm afraid, because we're running short today. We've got loads and loads of great guests, but you're, of course, one of them. Lee, thank you very much indeed. Good to see you. Lee Harris there talking to us about how Burnham is probably a competent liar. I think he's probably right. We're going to go now live to Chagos Islands, though, where the time, of course, as you can see behind us on the international clock, is getting on. 5 hours ahead. Misli Mandarin is here, the First Minister of Chagos Islands. Last time, Misli, we spoke, I said, what message have you got for Keir Starmer? And you said he should resign. And now he has.
Hello, good morning, Mike, and good morning to your listeners and viewers as well. So, if you find the right fight and you pray so hard in your life, and I believe because Andy Burnham, apparently he's going to be the next Prime Minister. And he's more savvy politically with the Labours and probably can make things a little bit different. But the core issue is the Labour philosophy, the Labour government. So the best outcome in general election, snap election, if Andy Burnham can do that, he deserves me.
Absolutely right. Listen, you've got the winds of change blowing through there, Mr. Misli, and it's a bit difficult to hear you, so we'll keep it short. But how are you doing? Tell us how things are. It looks very windy there today.
It is very windy, and we are very well, as you can see. And we got our three flags behind me. We got the Union Jack, you got the Chagos flag, and you got the US flag. So these three flags, that is the national security for Britain. And I'm here, and the 5 Chagosian who are with me, we are upholding British national interests here.
Yeah. Fantastic to see you, Misli. We're going to cut it short because we can't hear you too well, but thank you so much for joining us, and we wish you all the best as ever, and we'll see you again soon. We'll try and get you back maybe later in the week on a slightly better line, but lovely to see the Chagos flag there, Pooch. Look really nice. I think we should try and get one of them.
Yeah, well, we've definitely got to get the shirt sorted out.
Get the shirt sorted and get the Chagos flag sorted out so we can have that sitting in here. Super chat here from, who's that from? Somebody, I. Burnham is getting the fairy tale that Sadiq Khan wanted. I bet he's very jealous. The whole of Labour couldn't manage a good crap. Well, I think that's probably fairly true. Extraordinary times we're facing now because at the end of the day, we have got rid of Keir Starmer. Now, I've been saying it, as I said, I mean, we celebrated yesterday. I think we can continue to celebrate today because the front pages we haven't quite gone through in the same way as we normally would. Burnham angles for power, says on the front page of the Times, newly sworn in MP, could be Prime Minister next month after Starmer accepts desire for change, as they say, with good grace, and resigns. Well, he didn't really, did he? I mean, I don't think you would describe Keir Starmer's performance yesterday outside Downing Street as resigning with good grace. You know, he tried to make everybody feel sorry for him by having his voice kind of crack at the end, talking about his amazing wife Vic and his children. Nobody cares about that, mate. You've done a disgusting disservice to most of the people in this country. You have victimised pensioners. You've victimised people in the Chagos Islands. He tried to have people arrested for going to their homeland, right? He hasn't been able to stop the boats or smash the gangs. He's in fact presided over even more immigrants coming here illegally than ever before. Last year, absolutely unbelievable numbers came, the highest ever. They're down slightly this year, but that remains to be seen because we're entering into a very kind of busy period now in the summer. 11,000 migrants have come so far this year. And if you're wondering what that would be the equivalent of, it's the equivalent of a small town in this country, like Hexham, for example, in Northumberland, an attractive market town located 20 miles west of Newcastle upon Tyne. Ludlow in Shropshire, that's a nice town, that's got 11,000 people in it. Imagine an entire town made up of illegal migrants. And the Daily Mail goes with a picture of Andy Burnham arriving at Manchester Piccadilly station, flanked by 2 police officers, and it says, Messiah without a mandate. Andy Burnham is set to be installed as Prime Minister in just 3 weeks, despite having the feeblest mandate in British political history. Daily Mail readers are leading the call for an early election, with 89% of 73,000 online votes telling Burnham to go to the ballot box. People want a general election. People want to see what Andy Burnham is made of. They want to know what he wants to do. They want to understand what his policies will be. They want to know what his philosophy is, because nobody knows what it is. And all of these creepy Labour politicians who are sort of sidling up to him in the hopes of getting a job, I think, are a disgrace. Absolutely and utterly a disgrace. Let us go now, though, to Edward Hughes in the newsroom and get some news.
Good morning, I'm Edward Hughes. The most authoritarian PM of all time, Two-tier Keir, has resigned after less than 2 years in office, citing mounting pressure within the Labour Party, or the fact he's just an idiot. Greater Manchester's former mayor, Andy Burnham, Chancellor and freshly elected as an MP, is the clear favourite to become the UK's next Prime Minister, potentially within weeks, with strong backing including from West Streeting. Meanwhile, Britain is sweltering under a major heatwave. The Met Office has issued rare extreme heat warnings, with temperatures forecast to break June records, possibly hitting 38 to 39 degrees Celsius in parts of England and Wales. Other headlines include former DUP leader Geoffrey Donaldson, found guilty of child sexual offences, and calls for more LGBT veterans to claim compensation before a deadline. Remember to like and subscribe. Laters, Tigers.
Thank you. Edward Hughes there with the news. And there's going to be plenty of it, of course. Lots of other stories to talk about this morning, including the thunderstorm. We've actually got some pretty good footage coming in of the thunderstorm. I don't know if we want to play it at some point. But the thunderstorm in London, which was very spectacular, has to be said. We'll have a look at that later on. But of course, as you might expect, the result of the thunderstorm is that there are roads closed, roads flooded, railway lines not working properly, and it's the usual, El Collapso from the British administrative bloc, where they can't actually run a railway line and they can't actually run a road without it being flooded. Unbelievable stuff. And schools, of course, have been closed yesterday and probably today because of the heat wave that's coming. Nobody knows why. Why shut the school? Makes no sense. Can we do that? Yeah, have a look at this. This is the thunderstorm from this morning, around about 3:15. But it was quite scary, actually, because it got really, really loud at times, and it was very close. When you do that thing where you count the distance between the thunder and the lightning in order to work out how far away it is, and you can hear it getting closer. The one that woke me up was literally, it was one of the loudest things I've ever heard.
Do you know how that works?
The counting? Yeah, I think it's in 1 second per mile, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like sound travels at 1 second, and light is there immediately.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
How far away was it?
so if it's well, at one point when the thunder was right over my head, I didn't have to count to see where the lightning was because it was so bleeding loud. I was like, it's here. But then as it rolled away, you could see it getting further away. Because the bit that woke me up, it was literally right there, right on the river. Quite extraordinary stuff. Also, Emma Hayes is back in the news. She's on page 3 of the Daily Mail today because it's there. She was back in the kitchen, down here.
Nice.
And they changed it. When she first was in the kitchen, it was a blackboard she was using, and she had this white chalkboard. And so they've obviously decided it would be changed to putting little dots on it, a bit like our map of the world where we've got people. And the TV source apparently said to the Mail that they were very embarrassed at ITV because they didn't realise they were going to brew up a sexism storm and getting all these misogynistic comments online. So when she was analysing Belgium versus Iran, instead of just doing the old kitchen sink scenario, she had a little thing to say about Father's Day. And so she turned her back, and on the back of her shirt, she said the thing that her father apparently said to her, "She will change the world," which is all very nice, but still, she's still in the kitchen. They've still got it wrong, I think, as far as I can see. Hi, Graham, says Andy. I mean, I don't know why that makes us laugh, but it does. Great show as always. Did the nation witness yesterday an empathetic two-tier Keir? Yeah, I see what you did there. I mean, I'm surprised nobody did the old, it's Tier Starmer headline, but I think the Sun did it in the inside pages, but not on the front. Yeah, I mean, look, the thing is, right, Keir Starmer is gone, and I think everybody would be happy about that. Even no matter what they say about her, Vic, Keir Starmer's wife, are probably happy that he's not doing it anymore either, because he couldn't have been enjoying it. He didn't ever look like he was enjoying it. He always looked like he was miserable as sin, and not as miserable as we were, of course.
Do you feel sorry for her?
Do I feel sorry for Vic?
Yeah.
No, absolutely not. Because one of the things that I resent about Mrs. Starmer was that she was apparently telling him to hang in there and to stay in as Prime Minister and not to resign, which I don't think is her place at all. Because to be Prime Minister of this country is a great honour. To be Prime Minister is to do the bidding and the service of the nation. He said he was doing that, but he never did actually do it. So if his wife was upset because he was grumpy, because everyone was telling him to get out and calling him nasty names, at the end of the day, it's not for her to say. It's not for, the wife of the Prime Minister to convince him to continue in the job when he's damaging the country. She should have been operating on behalf of the country and telling him for his own personal health and safety, he should just get out. That's what I would suggest.
I feel a meltdown coming on.
Shall I feel a meltdown, Graham? Yeah, let's do a meltdown. Let's do it. Now, I don't know about you, but I have not seen such a craven example of what's wrong with the British Parliament as I saw yesterday. Andy Burnham walking into the chamber, right, to cheers as if he was the conquering hero, as if he'd literally won the World Cup single-handedly. Should we have a look at that particular clip when we can, of Burnham being called to sign his name and to register himself as the MP for Makerfield, having won the by-election last Thursday night. Have a look at this.
Welcome to Andy Burnham, member for Makerfield.
Rome is saved.
I swear by Almighty God that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles, his heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
So, funny looking suit, by the way. There's something going on with the shoulders. Looks like he can't fill the suit. But this is how it all started, right? And it was all orchestrated. It was all kind of very carefully put together by what you know now as media kind of personalities, people who would be advising Andy Burnham. This is what you should do. Don't take a car down to London. Get on the train, because that's what the working man would do. And that's exactly what the ordinary local man in Manchester would do. Go to Manchester Piccadilly Station and start your journey there. Have a look.
Hi Andy, Manchester Evening News. What do you reckon, Prime Minister by July? Sworn in as MP for Makerfield is the most important thing.
When do you announce your intention to stand today?
I'm going to get onto the platform, I think. Any message for the region as you head down to London? Sorry, this is no more than you bargained for.
It's funny how all those photographers were there, isn't it? Just waiting. Lucky for them, he walked through at that very moment. Because imagine being that lucky if you're a photographer. The reason they're all there is because they've been told to be there. The reason Andy Burnham is dressed in a T-shirt is because he's been told to wear a T-shirt because he looks like a common man. Croy there saying Andy the Ego Burnham. He is. I quite like the fact that he was nicknamed Angry Burnham during the Makerfield by-election because he doesn't like Cyril Smith's suit. That's good. That's the last time it looked like that. Yeah. Because he is this character, right, that he's created. He's literally like a sort of caricature of a Mancunian. Because, of course, he's not a Mancunian, is he? He was born in Merseyside, Aintree, as far as I'm aware. And he grew up in Cheshire, I think, I'm right in saying. And he went to Cambridge, and he's an English literature graduate. Nothing against that. But why pretend to be this kind of working class kid? Why pretend to be this guy that likes to dress like he's in New Order? Why pretend, you know, that he's somehow going to save the nation? Why pretend? Why just not be yourself? And I think the truth of the matter is that unfortunately a lot of these MPs don't want to be themselves. They want to push out an image. They want to present themselves as something they're not. And of course, the media suck it up. The media are fawning all over them already. They're fawning all over Burnham, and they put helicopters up to track his journey from Manchester to London, to track his journey from Euston Station to Westminster in a taxi. You know, in like the second coming of Jesus Christ. And of course, he wasn't even an MP when Keir Starmer won the last election in 2024. So he's got to hold an election now, seems to me, in order to cement the fact that people want him to be the Prime Minister. Because judging by the people on this show, nobody wants him to be the Prime Minister. Hev Chip says, I hope that those that voted for Burnham watch very carefully. I think that's an important point. Because out of touch doesn't even begin to describe the MPs in Parliament or indeed the media, the mass media that were turning up outside of Downing Street yesterday to watch Keir Starmer resign and who then later turned up in Parliament to watch Andy Burnham being kind of welcomed in as if he was some kind of conquering hero. It's a very unpleasant thing to watch when you've got a country on its knees, when you've got people, you know, who can't afford to go on holiday, people who can't afford to get a new car, people who can't afford to buy the weekly shop for their families because they haven't got enough money, people getting taxed up the wazoo, shutting down their businesses. Was his dad a toolmaker? I don't know what his dad did, actually. We should check that out. But yeah, I just don't think Andy Burnham is the answer. I really don't. The prediction you made on Starmer was correct, Mike. What's your prediction for Burnham, says Paul? Well, my prediction for Burnham is that he will hold an election and that he'll lose it. See how that goes. And I think it will happen before the end of the year. So, that's what I've got to say. That's my meltdown for today. Right now, it's time for Claire Pearsall, former government advisor, of course. Let's get her take on what's happening over the course of the last 24 hours. Claire, very good morning to you.
Morning, how you doing?
I'm very well indeed. I waited 2 years for Starmer to resign and he finally did it on my show, which was fantastic. I opened a bottle of champagne yesterday at 9:30 as he was resigning in Downing Street, and I wasn't buying any of his kind of, you know, fake crocodile tears about how, oh, I want to be the best dad and the best husband I can be, you know, because he didn't feel very sorry for anybody when he was, you know, demonising them and locking them up and making sure that the police arrested you every time you wrote something you didn't like on Twitter.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I didn't buy any of that little sort of faux crying episode. You know, he's now gone to spend more time with his family, so I'm sure he'll enjoy that. And apparently his wife was the one who was saying, don't give up, you must fight on. And I think that's largely because she didn't want him hanging around the house making a nuisance of himself, because now she have to put up with him for the rest of the time because he's going to be there, he's not going to be out in the evenings or away at the weekends. So I think that was probably part of her MO with that one.
Yes.
But he's gone, so we can celebrate Brexit referendum day and goodbye to Keir Starmer day and have a really nice week. And there's a heat wave.
Yes, it's lovely, isn't it? Although the thunderstorm was a bit scary this morning. I don't know whether you woke up, but I woke up at 4:20, as I've told people earlier on today. It was an incredibly loud thunderclap, the like of which I thought was going to, bring the house down. And somebody actually wrote on Twitter that it was some kind of Starmer revenge. I really don't think he can muster that kind of power, do you?
No, I mean, his would have been a little bit of drizzle if it was done by Starmer. Sort of a puff of wind. I didn't even wake up, so I have to admit that I slept through the entire lot. I was really quite tired. And I had fans on, so that's my excuse, that it wasn't quite loud enough for me.
No, absolutely right. So, I mean, I guess the thing that surprised me, and it shouldn't have surprised me because I've been doing this a long time, was the sort of the willingness of the Labour Party to welcome Andy Burnham into the chamber as he walked in, to sign up as a new member of Parliament, as if he had literally won the World Cup on his own.
Yes. I mean, it was incredible scenes, wasn't it? We had helicopters following the train, snappers at the station, people following his taxi all the way to Parliament. And you just think, he's a man from the north who's won an election. He isn't the Messiah. Right. He has a level of arrogance like I've never seen.
It is amazing, isn't it? He's so entitled, isn't he?
Yeah, he got someone to stand down from a seat so that he could take it because he said, I can win this. And now he's whooshing down from the north to come and save us all from the hell of I don't know what. But he seems to think that he is the one that can sort everything out. And everybody's lapping it up. He walked into Westminster Hall, have a massive gaggle of MPs wanting selfies with him. And you just think he's not actually done anything. He's won a popularity contest, which is what elections are, and he hasn't done any work. So I don't know of anybody else that has a massive celebration if they just turn up for work on the first day. I mean, I certainly didn't, and I probably won't when I leave. But he seems to have this aura about him, and everybody wants to hang on those coattails.
But is it not just because it's anybody but Starmer, and it happens to be him, in a way that, there are plenty of people maybe outside of Westminster who don't think that Andy Burnham is the answer. I mean, certainly there are plenty of people in the north of England who don't think that he is as they want him to be, this kind of great representative of northern man. I mean, it's almost like, Cro-Magnon man has been discovered somewhere in Manchester and they've gone, oh, he'll be the answer. Let's bring somebody from the north. I mean, I was watching yesterday, Tulip Sadiq, one of Starmer's great mates, was saying that she would actually like to see a female candidate pushing herself forward to be leader because, even if she didn't win, it would at least show that the Labour Party have got the ability to recognise what a woman is, and it maybe might not a bad idea to have one in charge.
And I think that's the way it's going. I mean, never underestimate Labour MPs and their desire to have a debate or a conversation around a leadership election. They're not going to like the coronation facts. Now, Andy Burnham is going back to an incredibly different Labour Party in Westminster to the one he left. There are too many divisions. There are a lot of new and very ambitious people sitting there that think that they could do the job. And I do think Tulip had a point. You need to have a woman. This is the Labour Party that tells us equity is everything, and they have never had a female prime minister or female leader. I mean, that is appalling. Here we are in 2026. But what I don't want them to do is just to put a token effort in of somebody to stand and say, oh, look, we have got a woman, honestly.
No.
And also, Keir Starmer doesn't even know what a woman is anyway. So God alone knows who they'd pick.
Well, that's the problem, isn't it? And it is incredible, isn't it, that for all of their kind of bleating on about misogyny and, sexism and all that, actually the Labour government is probably the most sexist government we've had for quite a long time.
Yeah, they like the idea of having women there, but only in the background and probably to make the tea and take the notes in meetings.
Yeah.
I mean, it's such tokenism from them. And there are some really strong Labour women who are just never going to get that opportunity. I'd like to see Rosie Duffield come back into the Labour Party and actually have a position, because I think she's tremendous. But whether that will happen under a Burnham administration, I don't know. I really, really hope it does.
Yeah.
But who's they going to pick? They're going to pick between another, and I apologise for this, white middle-aged man. That's going to be what's on offer to them. You've got a northern one, you've got one that can bench press the world, and one that very much looks like Keir Starmer in the form of Darren Jones.
Yeah, exactly right. And who would be hopeless, by the way, and I don't think would have any chance of getting 81 of his own members of Parliament to actually vote for him. But let's not forget what Rosie Duffield said about Keir Starmer. She said he's got a problem with women, didn't she?
Yeah, she did, and I think she's absolutely spot on. He doesn't know how to deal with them, and you see that quite a lot in Westminster. I mean, I've been there a very long time, and they sort of look at you as if you're surplus to requirements, and they might nod and smile in your direction, but they don't pay any attention to what you say, and you just sort of think, what sort of signs are you sending out to the wider world that you can't accept that women have a voice, that women actually can do the job? And you just sort of dismiss them as a little bit of frippery on the sidelines. I mean, I find it disgusting from a party that sets itself out to be for the people.
Yes. Although, speaking of women MPs, I don't know if you saw this one yesterday, Lara Bird, the SNP MP who won in Broughty Ferry at the weekend, or last Thursday night, she came in to be sworn in yesterday as well, and decided it'd be a great idea to be sworn in with her fingers crossed. Have a look at this.
I take this oath only so that I can serve the people of Arbroath and Broughty Ferry. My first allegiance is, and always will be, the sovereign people of Scotland. I do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles, his heirs and successors, according to the law, so help me God.
I mean, she gave for Stroppy Teenager Award of the day or something like that. You know, it looked like when she was drawing, she was filling out that form on the table that she was going to draw something rude in the book. You know, and just go, oh, I'll just draw a picture of a penis. You know, I mean, what's the point of these people?
Well, I think that gives you the level of what we're going to expect from her. But you're right. She dressed herself like a sixth form student.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm all for women wearing what they want, but you're going into the House of Commons. Don't wear a really short dress.
Right.
You just look ridiculous. Dress properly, behave properly, and then go in there and debate like a grown-up. I mean, I just think this is the SNP all over, and this is now what we have to deal with. But thankfully, I'm sure she's going to find it incredibly difficult there. She's special for that moment, and then she becomes one of many. So she's going to have to fight to get time in the chamber. She's going to have an office which is in the far-flung parts of the estate. So all the glamorous stuff is over very, very quickly, and then reality sets in, and you're kind of left on your own, and it's sink or swim time.
Yeah, but then somebody tells you how many expenses you can claim, and it doesn't look so bad after all.
Yeah, but then she's still going to have people to fill that in for her, and she's still going to have to actually turn up and do some work. Otherwise, she's going to find that she's never going to be elected again. So if she wants to keep a very nice salary and a very nice expense account, that she's actually going to have to do some work. Otherwise, the voters of that area are just going to say, right, you've had your moment, sweetheart, off you go.
Yeah, absolutely right. And I mean, were you surprised yesterday at the kind of the speed with which some of Starmer's former mates were kind of suddenly finding themselves crowding themselves into the into Westminster Hall? Because they weren't actually sitting on the front bench when he came in. You know, I didn't see Rachel Reeves sitting there. I didn't see Angela Rayner sitting there. And then suddenly they've all sort of managed to find themselves around him in that new sort of selfie stick picture that he took.
Yeah, apparently there was several text messages and emails that went out encouraging people to come into Westminster Hall. So I think that they all want to be seen to be supporting him. So that's why they were there. There isn't much space in the chamber and on the front bench. I mean, if you had them all there, they'd have to squish up and almost sit on each other's laps. So I can kind of understand that. So they wanted to be in Westminster Hall. They wanted that moment because they knew it was going to be that photograph that made the front page. So they want to have their part in history by saying, you know, I am supporting the King of the North, aren't I great? But they didn't want to go too far to look as though they were taking sides, because at the moment they still have a job. And Keir Starmer's cabinet, for what it's worth, is meeting today, and you wonder what that conversation is going to be like around the table.
Well, well, you do wonder how many people won't bother turning up, because apparently you had a party last night as well, which I said I presume we were probably picking up the bill for in the Downing Street garden, to sort of say thank you to all the people who will presumably now all be switched out of Downing Street in order to be replaced by Andy Burnham's crowd if he gets in.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we do sort of spare a moment for anybody who isn't an elected official, because they will lose their jobs, I should imagine, relatively quickly. And it's a pretty brutal process. I've been through it myself. One day you're employed and the next day you're not. So I have sympathy for them, but I can't imagine what a party with Keir Starmer is going to be like. I hardly think it was raucous. So I should imagine that some people are going to take today off because it's a little bit hot and they don't want to risk the severe weather warning. So they're going to perhaps work from home today. I think that a lot of people are going to be looking at headhunters and saying, what's my next move?
Yeah. I've just seen something on Twitter which I have to share with you, which has got nothing to do with Starmer, but it's Sadiq Khan. I just put out a picture of a very weird-looking contraption, which apparently is a water fountain. He says, at the risk of igniting a public debate about the design, we prepared for days like this. There are now more than 100 water fountains all over the city and 4,000 water refill points. Fill up, stay hydrated. I need my big. Here we go. This is what I need to take. This is what I take on the tube now. Whenever it's whenever it's a bit hot. Moment. Because I mean, have you seen this? I've got Alp Mehmet here as well. I'm going to show you. Have you seen this, Alp? This is apparently what's going to be found all over London. Oh, hang on. There. A water fountain, which looks a bit phallic to me.
I was about to say the same thing.
There it is.
In front of your face. Wow, it does.
What is that? Hey?
It looks like the top of a mosque.
And why has he done it in he's also done it in reform colours, bizarrely. It's unlike him anyway. But so, just the madness goes on is all I can say. What's your best bet as to what happens in terms of whether there's an election, whether there's a leadership contest? What do you think?
I think there'll be a leadership contest. I just don't think they're going to help themselves. They're not going to want to be seen to have a coronation because they like to appear democratic. So you're going to have some random people putting their hat in. We're going to have this protracted leadership contest, and that'll take up most of the summer. And I don't think we're going to get any decisions made. So any work is actually going to be put on the back burner for the moment. And let's see. But I think Andy Burnham is going to be going around pressing the flesh a lot over the next few weeks, trying to make friends with people that he otherwise hasn't done.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a bit of a nightmare, I think, for those of us who would just like to see people getting on with running the country in a way, because, I mean, they're not really doing anything at the moment, which is the problem. Claire, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Claire Pearsall there with her take on what's going on inside of Downing Street. A cabinet meeting today for Keir Starmer, and we talk about a man in an empty suit. What's the point? Thank you, Squiffy. I'm not reading that out, but it does look a bit like that.
It does.
Not that I would know, obviously, but I've heard that. Is the water halal? I don't know. Modern politicians are simply not comfortable in their own skin. This is a super chat from Uncle Joe. In conflict with their conscience, ergo the imposter syndrome, a pretender for show in the highest theatre, parliament and world stage. That's interesting, actually. And one from Alistair. Mr. Ben Burnham reminds me of Nicola Sturgeon, the myth of competence, which doesn't stand up to proper scrutiny. The MSM have given him an easy ride. That's a good point, actually. I like that. That is very similar. He is similar to Nicola Sturgeon because it's all kind of performative nonsense. It's all kind of what's out there in the public domain. Everyone says, "Oh, he's such a nice guy," like people started saying about Keir Starmer yesterday. "Oh, what a decent man! What a lovely fellow!" Don't you feel sorry for him? There's a human side to every story. No, and no. Okay, I'm not sorry for him. I'm glad he's gone. I'd like to see him walking out of Downing Street today, actually. There's no point in him hanging around, quite frankly. Let's talk to Alp Mehmet, though, who is here, of course, from Migration Watch. Alp, good to see you.
Good morning, Mike. Good to see you.
What do you make of it all? I don't know that Andy Burnham's even got a policy on immigration, has he?
I fear that whatever policy he's got, it's not going to be the right one. And if anything, it's going to have the opposite effect to the one that I would like to see. You would like to see, and millions of people in this country have been waiting for the last 20 years.
Well, I think I'm right in saying, and you might know this more than me, did he not make Manchester one of those sanctuary cities?
Yeah.
So that refugees could go there, and he wanted to make sure that they were looked after and make sure that they were given HMOs to live in, hotels to stay in, and all the rest of it.
Well, the only thing that he's ever said about migration is really pretty much to back what Keir Starmer has been doing.
Yeah.
So I don't have high hopes with regard to immigration. I mean, there's lots of other areas, as you know better than I do, where Starmer has gone wrong, sort of a litany of failure.
Yeah.
So in a way, he has a fairly low bar to climb. I fear that he's an old-fashioned socialist.
Yeah, I think so.
Who's going to bring us back to the 1970s and before.
Yes.
I'm worried, I have to say.
Yeah, I mean...
And there's not going to be an election, Mike, for sure. I'm absolutely certain there won't be an election for at least 2 years.
I think
because he will want to
enough.
introduce his
but
policies.
I think here's my theory as to why I think there will be, and it's quite sort of logical if you're Andy Burnham. The economy is going to get worse, right? Immigration is going to get worse. Crime is going to get worse, right? The longer he's in charge, the worse his image will be, if you like. And so while he's got this kind of wave of optimism and populism in a way, which is a Labour populism, I think he'll take advantage of it. I think he'll be conceited enough to think that Makerfield was a real watershed moment for Labour, because they're not winning an election in 2029 after what they've done to this country. But he will think that he might be able to win an election this summer or this autumn, and he might catch reform on the hop. That's my logic for it.
Yeah, no, a perfectly rational, logical way of looking at it. I just don't think that looking back over the sort of occasions when prime ministers have been able to call early elections, they just haven't, particularly Labour ones. Going right back to Callaghan in the 70s, then there was Gordon Brown, where everyone was getting ready for an election and didn't call it.
People say Gordon Brown should have called an election when he didn't.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. But
maybe they'll learn from that. But maybe they'll learn from that as well.
Well, the thing is, he won't be in office long enough for any new ideas that he may have to have any impact at all. So what is it that he's going to go to the party, to the country, to say, vote me in for a bit longer? I mean, he's got a massive majority. He doesn't need to go to the party. Why should he go to the party?
But you would think that. But I mean, if that was the case, then why is Starmer no longer the Prime Minister? Because, I mean, Starmer had a massive majority, but he upset so many people in his own party for all sorts of reasons, but largely because he became so unpopular in the country, right? Now, you saw the way they welcomed him yesterday into Parliament, as if he was, some kind of gladiator walking into the arena, ready to take on all comers, and he'll be the answer to everything. Well, he won't be, because he doesn't have any policy internationally. No. As you say, we don't really know what he thinks about immigration, but we suspect it's not good. He doesn't appear to have any fiscal policy that he's mentioned. He doesn't appear to have any kind of, international view on, we don't know what he thinks about Israel, but we suspect it's very left-wing. We don't know what he thinks about Ukraine. Trump, he doesn't get on with. I don't know what Trump's going to, what I mean? It's like he's walking into the lion's den, and it seems to me pretty unprepared.
Well, just as his predecessor in time was unprepared, having had 14 years. They came in and didn't have a clue, really, how to run the country.
But they told us they did, didn't they? They said the day before the election, we're ready to roll on every single government department.
Have you ever come across a politician that doesn't tell you they know exactly what the solutions are? And you may be right, but can we have a small wager?
We can.
All right.
Because, by the way, I've got an update on the Emma Wolf wager. Because I read a piece last night in the Times, the paper of record, that Keir Starmer decided to resign on Saturday night. So where does that put us?
He didn't resign on Saturday night.
No, but he decided to resign on Saturday night.
Let Alfie the judge tell him.
So I had this bet with Emma Wolf. I said he'll be gone by the summer, and we decided the summer would be the summer solstice, right? Now, there's some doubt as well about whether it's the 21st or the 22nd, the summer solstice.
It does change.
Right? It does, so it might be the 22nd, in which case I win.
Yes.
Right?
I'll find out for you.
So I tried to find out last night, I couldn't. But it might be that the summer solstice was Monday, in which case I win. But I say that if he goes by, if he decides to go on Saturday night, which was the 20th, then I also win, don't I?
Mike, you're in charge.
You'll see. If
you decide you've won,
well,
you've won,
I
mate.
say all this. Meanwhile, we'll give the money to charity no matter what.
21st of June, right?
Was it the 21st? Okay.
Yeah.
The only reason I say all this is that if you want to make a bet with me, it gets complicated because I've always tried to sort of slither around on the rules. But what bet do you want to make?
I'd like to make a bet that there won't be any election before, at the earliest, October 2027.
Okay. October 2027. All right, I'll take that bet.
All right.
Straight bet.
All right.
20 quid.
Is that
Money
all?
goes to charity? Well, how much do you want to make it?
50.
I'm just a poor journalist. What's for 50 quid? I mean, you know.
Sergeant Bill
Okay then, 50 quid.
I'll up you.
We'll
It's
shake
going
on
to
it. There we go.
charity. It's going to charity.
It's going to go to charity, yeah. Okay, fine.
So
October 27th, does that include October or end of October?
End of October, 31st of October.
Okay, so you're effectively saying there won't be an election before the 1st of November?
There won't be an election before the 1st of November.
2027?
Yeah.
I think I'm all right. I think I'm in good shape for that one.
I don't.
I'll get my 50 quid back. Okay. Well, we'll see. Meanwhile, we get a story this morning, and I want to ask you about the story from yesterday as well, where Shabana Mahmood apparently has had to rework the rules for the one-in, one-out nonsense, because apparently loads of people who they've sent out have come back on a lorry. So
there's a surprise.
Now, well, my question is, how many people are coming in on lorries that we didn't know were coming in on lorries?
We did some work on this a few years ago now, when we reckoned there was something like 10,000 coming in. What it is now, given that it's become so much easier to actually come openly, I wouldn't like to say. It's very difficult to work out. But
how is it possible that they're
they're
coming on lorries? Because I thought, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that the whole business of the Calais, security was that it was much more difficult now to get on a lorry than it used to be, because they used to just run onto the road, didn't they, and jump onto lorries, whereas now there's fences everywhere.
Well, I mean, it was difficult in the days when I was an immigration officer in the 1970s, but they did.
Yeah.
They will find a way.
Right.
And there are also those companies that frankly turn a blind eye.
Yeah. Do you think there's any companies that actually will take money for people to get on the lorries?
I doubt it. And not British companies.
Right.
But there will be companies, there will be drivers, foreign drivers who they're either bullied into it, they're either forced into it, or they will do it for the money.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just human nature.
Right.
So we talk about ending illegal immigration, and I think we can do a lot to get towards that point. However, there will always be those who will chance anything and everything to get here.
Yeah.
And when you think in terms of, there's around 1 billion people, between 750 million and 1 billion people around the world who would actually move country, go to a richer country for a better life, given the chance. There are 120 million displaced people around the world who would, again, pay whatever they can to get to countries like ours. So you're never going to do it, stop it completely. It's going to go on. But my goodness, you can do a hell of a lot more.
But Britain needs to stop being such an attractive proposition, doesn't it?
Yeah,
really?
sure.
Because as long as it's still a place that people want to keep coming to, because they know they can stay here and live here and be looked after here, they're going to keep coming.
It's true, Mike. I agree with that completely, and we can do a great deal more, like other countries, in not sort of laying out the red carpet for people. But look, when you're in a country like Pakistan, Afghanistan, Nigeria, India even. Right. When you're in a country like that and you look at the average income per month, you're talking about $300. You look at countries like ours, the United States, $7,000 a month, Britain, $4,500, and add to that homes.
Well, benefits as well. I mean, people coming here and getting benefits.
Free.
Because once you qualify, there's a lot of myths spoken about the benefit system and immigration, because there was a time when people who were pro-immigration would say, immigrants, illegal immigrants particularly, can't claim benefits. Well, that's not true, because they can now. As soon as they're accepted to make an asylum claim, they are allowed to get some form of benefit. Because
they do.
Exactly. So that's no longer an argument that can be made by the lefties, who basically say, they have to...
Our law says that anyone who's destitute is to be provided with a home. And the law says that. That was in the 1998 Human Rights Act. So there's no question that anyone who makes their way here, they will sooner or later end up in the system anyway. Right. And there was some research done and calculations by the Dutch last year or the year before. And they worked out that it would be something like £400,000 lifetime cost for each illegal migrant coming here. Yeah. Well, there's been 61,500 since Starmer came into office. There's been over 10,000 this year. Yeah. Lifetime cost for 61,000 people is over £24 billion. Yeah. This is crazy. Yeah, of course we're cutting our own throats. We're putting a noose around our necks and putting it tighter.
Yeah, and when we keep hearing from people who say, well, Andy Burnham can't really do much if he becomes Prime Minister because there isn't any money, well, there would be a lot more money if it wasn't wasted on things like looking after people coming here illegally.
That's a nonsense. I mean, you can't argue. If you're not saying, you can't say, but we're not going to have them in because we can't afford it in the same breath.
Well, we can
say we're going to have them in because we can't afford to stop them. I mean, the two things.
Yeah, no. Well, exactly. I mean, you have to afford to stop them, because otherwise the bill just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, because they have more members of their family join them, or they have more members of a family, or they have more children. The whole thing is out of kilter.
Yeah, and really, what makes me particularly angry is that our governments going back to Blair's day, have known all along that immigration is costly. It costs the taxpayer billions, and yet they've still gone ahead because the short-term gains, when it grows the economy, and you give the impression.
But I don't understand the people who say it grows the economy, because surely if you're spending that much public money on supposedly growing the economy, it's a sort of double negative at the end of the day, because you might be growing the economy over there, but in order to pay for that, you're borrowing more money over here.
Yeah, but what you're not doing, of course, is growing the economy per head.
No.
So what you're doing there is effectively
economy that's
per capita economy has never worked with mass immigration. Right. That is a problem. I really lost it with Starmer after his speech. We discussed this last time I was on the 12th of May last year, when he spoke about an island of strangers. Yes. What did he say? Can I just remind your viewers, Mike? He said, he designed, he inherited a system that was designed to permit abuse, that encourages some businesses to bring in lower paid workers. Then he went on to say, you're actually contributing to the forces that are slowly pulling our country apart. Now, when people like me said it, we're far right.
Oh, yeah.
And it was when he changed his mind after making that quite sensible speech that I welcomed at the time.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it turned on its head.
The next thing he said was he wished he hadn't said it, right?
Yeah.
And then did he not also say that he hadn't read the speech through before he actually read it on camera.
I don't believe that.
I don't believe that
You know,
either.
if any
Well,
prime minister who doesn't read, doesn't know, I've not worked for, but I've been close to a number of prime ministers where speeches have gone in.
Right.
And my goodness, every comma, every dot is examined. He didn't know. Well, shame on him if he didn't know, and good thing that he's going.
I mean,
that's
funnily
why
enough,
he's going.
One of the reasons, he did go was because of that. I mean, but one of the things that was said to be a criticism of Starmer was that he was very bad, despite the fact that he's got this kind of legal reputation that everything's about exactly the written word and the word of law and all the rest of it. He was actually not a details guy. It's possible that he wasn't somebody who pored over every single word and understood it. But that would, again, be pathetic.
He didn't write that, Mike. Someone wrote it for him.
Yeah.
Now, he didn't suddenly appear before the auto cue and start reading it. He will have seen it and gone over it a number of times before he came to be doing it. What he said, I think he actually meant.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, he realised that, oh my goodness, this has echoes of Enoch Powell. I better retract it.
Yeah.
And that's really where I have the problem with the Labour Party, because that sort of thinking, the sort of thinking among the backbenchers that they've got at the moment. Why Shabana Mahmood, who I think is well-meaning enough, but she's never going to be allowed, even if Burnham keeps her there. She's never going to be allowed by the left wing who brought in Burnham because he thinks like them.
The problem is, of course, that they're not very good at their jobs. I mean, that's the bottom line. The reason Starmer's out is because he couldn't do the job. He wasn't a very good prime minister for all sorts of reasons.
No.
He couldn't make up his mind who he wanted to be. He couldn't make up his mind who he wanted to please. He had no real conviction about anything other than maintaining his job. And I think in the end, that was what exposed him for being useless.
Well, I'm afraid he and Lord Hermer, all they were concerned about were abiding by international law. And said, in no uncertain terms, they said that the rights of foreigners, the rights of illegal migrants would actually trump the rights of British citizens. That really angered the British people.
Of course it did.
And if Burnham, unless he says, look, I'm going to serve the interests of the British people, everything else is secondary to that, then I'm afraid he will go the same way as Keir Starmer.
I suspect you're absolutely right. Al Mehmet, great to see you, as ever. Thank you very much indeed for coming in. I'll hold you to that bet.
You bet. I'll hold you to it.
We shall see. We've just made a bet about whether there's going to be an election. Alp says there won't be one before the 1st of November 2027. I'm not sure that's entirely correct. Let's see what Richard Tice thinks about it. He's the Deputy Leader, of course, of Reform. Mr. Tice, very good morning to you, sir.
Very good morning. Can I double up on your bet? Because I think you're going to be onto a winner there, and I want to join the party, Mr. Graham.
Well, we can certainly have a...
I didn't hear.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, I was saying to Alp, I think we saw Andy Burnham coming into the Commons yesterday like some kind of gladiator, as if he's the saviour of the Western world, taking on all comers. The man has not yet told us what he thinks, what he believes, what his policies are going to be. And I think he just might be conceited enough to throw his hat into the ring and try and take on Reform now, before the economy completely collapses around his ears and he's got nothing to boast about.
Well, multiple reasons why he should call an early election. First is, 4 years ago, when the Tories were in a pickle, he was tweeting like mad, #general election now. And so if he's a man of integrity and principle and conviction and consistency, then he should do what he said back then. He was joined by the likes of Angela Rayner and David Lammy, of course, and the now sort of defunct Sir Keir Starmer. So, and here's what's going on. There's going to be a budget in November, which will be a heavy tax-raising budget, particularly if you want to progress the sort of hard socialist plans that Mr. Burnham appears to want. And he could be, by Christmas, as unpopular as Starmer in an economy that is failing. And what troubles me around all of this, Mike, is that essentially the mother of all democracies in the UK is subject to a coup by someone that most of the country have no idea who he is. Over 7 million adults did not have the right to vote when Andy Burnham was last in the Houses of Parliament. Just think about that. Most people have no idea who this bloke is. He's just rocks up and says, I'm in charge here, give me the keys and I can do whatever I like. I mean, it's just outrageous.
It really is. And also, we don't even have a clue because he didn't spout any of what policy he was in favour of during the Makerfield by-election. You know, he talks about, you know, being the local man down to, you know, getting a train down from Manchester. And the way that the media has kind of accepted him seems to me to be extraordinary. You know, these are the same people that felt sorry for Keir Starmer yesterday as he shuffled off quite rightly from a job that he could never do. And suddenly now Andy Burnham's the answer. Well, it must be a pretty stupid question because this is a guy who's lost 2 attempts at becoming Labour leader. You know, Manchester is not, you know, some kind of Shangri-La that he's created. I mean, I've been to Manchester, I've been to Piccadilly Gardens, and I've seen the state of the traffic system, and I've seen the state of the trams and the buses and the homeless people. You know, I don't know how he's getting away with telling everyone that he's the king of the north.
It's ridiculous. He's the king of the U-turn. He is Captain Flip-Flop. That is the reality. I must actually congratulate you because I think you were the first broadcaster 2 years ago to say Starmer wouldn't last the distance.
True. And I was ridiculed by people who said, "Oh, there's no way that can happen. The Labour government don't have any method by which they can remove a leader." Oh, really? Well, you know, check your facts before you start having a go at me, matey, as I would say to people.
Yeah, so I think a feather in your cap there.
Thank you.
But yes, no one knows what this... I mean, this bloke Burnham, just a few months ago, he was saying he wanted to rejoin the EU.
Yeah.
A few weeks ago, he said that the WASPy women should be compensated. 24 hours later, he said, oh no, by the way, they shouldn't.
Yeah.
He wanted men to go into female bathroom spaces.
Yeah.
We've no idea what he wants to do about stopping the boats. And we've no idea whatever he's ever said. Has he ever said anything on the broader economic picture? Has he ever said anything about foreign policy, about defence, about immigration levels?
Yeah.
What's he said about net zero? I mean, extraordinarily, he said last Friday, he said things need to change, which means basically he wants to change the whole mandate of what Labour's up to, which means that he's not going to follow their manifesto. If he wants to reindustrialise Britain, well, so do we. He's sort of stealing our language. Well, the only way you can do that is to scrap net stupid zero so that we can dramatically and rapidly bring our energy bills down. Well, is he really going to be able to do that in the face of 400 MPs who for the last 2 years have been parroting Clean Power 2030?
Right.
Give me a break.
Well, I heard the dreaded phrase GB energy yesterday in some debate that was being had in Parliament where, you know, our mate Jürgen, who sits in that porter cabin up in Aberdeen without any employees and without any
With
energy.
his one other employee.
Yeah, without any energy of any kind whatsoever. And as Donald Trump pointed out yesterday, you know, where do we get our oil from? We get it from Norway, who are digging it out of the same bed that we could be in ourselves without actually having to pay their fees.
The whole thing is absurd. What I think you're going to see is Ed Miliband will not become Chancellor, but will become the Secretary of State for Housing and Local Government. I suspect Chancellor will be someone like John Healey, possibly Streeting, something like that. Rachel Reeves will shuffle off somewhere, perhaps back to the Accounts Department, and that'll be the difference. But whoever becomes Secretary of State for Energy.
She looks more like, I've said it, she looks more like Richard III than Richard III does.
That's absolutely brilliant. I need a picture of that. That's hysterical. But in seriousness, I think they will start to approve the Rosebank and Jackdaw oil fields.
Yeah.
And I think that will be a key thing that has to be a critical part of trying to sort of bring the industrial base of Labour voters back into the fold, because otherwise the unions, I mean, that will be the price they extract.
Sure. And what happens in Manchester? Because last time you were here, I asked you about the Manchester mayoral race, and you said that obviously you will, in due course, announce a candidate. Restore have now announced they've got a candidate. When does that all sort of get underway then? When does the timetable for that all start?
Very rapidly, and that's why we've got applications and we're looking at candidates. So we'll be announcing shortly, because it's going to take place on Thursday, the 30th of July, I think is the date. So it's going to be a very rapid election, and it essentially will be a sort of air war because there's quite a tight spending limit. And Labour have gerrymandered the voting system on that. It's now a supplemental vote, so you get a second preference in order to try and stop reform. This is what we're up against. This is the establishment basically doing whatever they can, cheating in whatever way they can, in order to prevent reform from saving our country and fixing Britain.
Yeah, it's an extraordinary thing that the sort of the mainstream media, if you like, are ganging up on reform. All sorts of people in Parliament are ganging up on reform. I mean, I saw Zach Polanski being interviewed yesterday by Cathy Newman, being asked if he would get into bed with Andy Burnham. I don't know why they keep asking Zach Polanski anything, because I think the Greens have shot their bolt, haven't they?
I think they have, and I think that Polanski's stuck somewhere in a submarine, and I think Burnham will get a Burnham bounce of 5, maybe 6 points, and most of that will come from the Greens. That's the reality.
Yeah. So in terms of what happens if he was to call an election, would reform be ready?
Yes, absolutely. We're gearing up, and we will be ready. Of that, I've no doubt at all. It's quite clear that the Tories, they don't want an election, they're for it. The Lib Dems don't want an election, they're for it. And neither of them would be ready. We'll be ready for sure, with candidates, with policies, and bring it on as far as we're concerned.
Okay. Richard, I know you've got to run, so we'll let you go. Thank you.
Thank you so much indeed. Lovely to see you.
Very good to talk to you. Thanks a lot. Richard Tice, their Deputy Leader of Reform. He says they're ready for an election. Ellie Hodges is here.
Hello, good morning.
You ready for another election? You've just done Makerfield.
Oh, God, another one. I know, we're going to go back up to Manchester as well.
Yes. Well, this is the thing, I was looking at, and I didn't realise this, I suppose, because I wasn't paying attention, but I looked at some of the numbers, and I think I'm right in saying that Burnham won Manchester's mayor race with something like 450,000, and Reform only got about 50,000. So that's quite a big mountain to climb. I mean, I know Richard Tice is very confident that they can win, or they can at least make an effort of winning. But that's a lot of votes to make up.
A really, really good candidate.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate that someone like Maggie Oliver doesn't really want to be involved in politics. I completely understand why, but she would be a fantastic candidate.
Yeah.
And I think she could do a lot for that area as well.
Yeah.
But we will see what happens there. And as you said, Restore have now put up their candidate as well. From what I can see, quite a strong candidate.
Yeah.
So it'll be really interesting to see.
He's somebody that's been involved in the rape gang inquiry, isn't he?
Yes.
And his own daughter, I think, was a victim.
Yeah, exactly. So it will be really interesting to see all of the candidates that are put up, and I'll have another trip up to Manchester.
And I guess it depends on who Labour put up as well, because, I mean, who do you think they might decide to pick on?
I don't know, because, as they would say, no one can beat the King of the North, Andy Burnham.
No. And maybe he'd like to stay as Prime Minister and Mayor of Manchester
I'm
at the
sure
same
he'd
time.
love that. Come on, that's his dream job, I think.
What did you find? I know we spoke to you on Friday. What did you find up there in terms of what people think of Burnham? Because he's a bit of a sort of chameleon, it seems to me. He is whatever you want him to be,
Yeah, it was very mixed. It was either love him or hate him. There wasn't really any, I'm not too sure about him. But when I went around, I deliberately tried to speak to people who had Andy Burnham signs outside of their house to ask them, why Andy Burnham? And a lot of them said, I feel like he represents the area. I feel like I can trust him. Yeah. So he has built up a lot of support around there. And I think, fair play to him, he has done some good things in Manchester. And I'm not saying that he is perfect by any means. He basically completely ignored the rape gang scandal, which is unforgivable. But he did do some things where the people in that area said, actually, that's kind of been good for us. And I think because he's built up this personality of being the King of the North and, being so amazing for the North, people have actually started to believe it.
Yeah. Well, that's the trouble. If you say things often enough, people do believe it. And also, the Labour machine is quite good. I said the same thing about Sadiq Khan. He manages to get the vote out in London when nobody I know has ever voted for him. And yet he keeps winning, and the same goes probably for the Labour vote in Manchester, where they're quite good at getting the vote out.
Yeah, I said this the other day, I can't remember where I said it, but Andy Burnham, love him or hate him, I'm sure a lot of people watching this aren't going to be the biggest fans of him.
Pooch hates him already. I mean, a lot of people on the YouTube chat are like fed up with him already.
Yeah, if you
know.
love him or hate him, he ran a fantastic campaign and he got a lot of young people behind him as well. And there was real enthusiasm for him on social media. That's something that I think other parties, especially Reform, can learn and think, okay, what went successful in his campaign in Makerfield that made him get such a strong result and replicate that in Manchester. I think there's lots of lessons that Reform need to learn from that by-election and we'll see what happens. But I do think that Andy Burnham did managed to gather a lot of support, especially amongst young people. And, you know, there's people that I know that aren't really that into politics that know who Andy Burnham is already, which is quite rare.
But I guess, I mean, looking at, say, Josh Simons, who was the outgoing MP, I mean, he was not somebody that you might have otherwise picked on and gone, well, he would be a great local candidate for Makerfield.
No.
But he managed to win, so you'd have to say it's a pretty Labour area.
Yes.
And so, I mean, Burnham was smart by, although we were told he tried 26 other constituencies before he found that one, you know, that was a good place for him to run because it was his kind of place, if you like.
Yeah, he managed to kind of get everyone behind him there by playing the I'm from the North card.
Yes.
But then again, you know, Rob Kenyon's also from... He actually was born in the constituency. But he wasn't a great candidate,
I think.
No, he was not a good candidate at all. I mean, as soon as he was picked, all of that
and
stuff
I think
came
if he
out
had
about
been,
him.
yeah, and also if he had been the only local guy, he might have had a bit of an edge. But
that's the
because
problem
Burnham
now
was
is
then painting himself as the local
it's
guy.
who can out-local. That's what elections have come. It's who's more local than the other person. Not actually are they a good candidate, I think.
There's a good one there. Just want to flash that one at the beginning. I'll do that one. Andy Burnham is cock of the north, this guy's saying, and I live in the north. Michelle, presumably that's not a good thing. I don't think she likes him, but yeah. So what do you see happening? Do you think there's going to be an election, general?
No, I don't think so.
No?
I think Labour are known for clinging on to power for as long as possible. I don't see why they would call a general election unless there's absolute certainty they would win it, and there isn't.
No,
there
isn't at the moment.
There's a chance,
but there's also absolute certainty that they wouldn't win one in 2029 because they've completely ruined the country.
Exactly, so they'll want to cling on to power until then, I think, personally.
Okay.
I also don't think that the other, Reform is ready yet.
Well, they say they are. You just heard it from the horse's mouth. But, I mean, I suppose you might say they would say that, wouldn't they?
Yeah, they're obviously going to say that. I think Restore are even saying that they're ready for a general election.
They're definitely not ready.
Exactly.
Yeah, they weren't ready for Makerfield.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
but yeah, with Restore and Makerfield, I did find that I'm quite critical of Restore, but they're not just an online party anymore. I think that's fair to say.
Oh, I think so, yeah. I think they're definitely going to get bigger and they're definitely going to create a sort of an interesting presence. But I don't think they're ever going to be... I don't think they'll ever get to where Reform are now.
No, I don't think so. And what I found very interesting is that on some houses they actually had a Reform banner and a Restore banner on the same window. And I thought, do you realise that Restore literally hates Reform?
Yeah. And I think also there's confusion around the two names because...
they're very similar.
They're not
a lot of people
dissimilar
on
names.
TV keep slipping up on it as well, politicians.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's deliberate from Restore's point of view because you might get a few votes and people think they're voting Reform because they see RE and go
Yeah.
Does Ellie have any insight on this clip I'm about to play?
Oh, go on.
Look, Ellie, grab your headphones.
Oh, there you are.
Here we go.
Says, go on, Nigel Farage! Hey!
Oh my God, is that Christian?
That is Christian, yeah.
That's hilarious.
Christian Drogan from Watchmen. I don't know where it's from. I assume it was from the Makerfield that's on the stump where he gets Burnham to hug him and then he calls out.
That's amazing. How did he get that close to him? I mean, we tried to get into where the Labour HQ was.
Yeah.
And they were like, no, you can't come anywhere near. Wow,
Surprising.
that's actually quite impressive.
Maybe your
you could tell Andy
reputation has
Burnham
gone
did not
before
know.
you.
Yeah, you could tell that Andy Burnham did not know how to react to that as
No.
well. He just kind of stood there a bit
because
awkwardly.
because he's another one of these guys that does a lot of smiling, but you know that the smile's a bit fake.
Oh yeah, that
And it
looks
kind of,
extremely
It
fake.
gets a bit sort of Richter smile-like. We shall see. But yeah, it's going to be a fascinating couple of weeks
I
anyway.
hope he had a proper conversation with Andy Burnham as well and see what he thought. Because I think that it's so important as well to talk to people who you politically disagree with. For example, Rupert Lowe was in my hotel reception and I actually ended up having a conversation with him and I was very critical of him.
And how did you find him?
Well, all of my views have just been proven right from my conversation with him, I found. And I found that him as a person was actually decent, pleasant enough to speak to. Just some of the people around him didn't really want him speaking to
I don't
me,
think
though.
they do him any favours. You know,
No,
I think that's the problem.
no.
And I think that is the problem with the party, is that, you know, when I was doing Dan Wootton's show the other night, there were people there who were very much restored.
Yeah.
And they said, well, he can't be expected to police everybody that's in his party. Well, unfortunately, he has to do that.
You have to.
Because if you don't, it looks as though you don't care what they say, and you might agree with some of it. And
Exactly.
That's the difficulty.
And Reform did have had issues, and are still having issues with some people coming out and saying things that the party does not align itself with.
Yeah.
And the majority of the time, they do come out and say, no, we distance ourselves from these comments. We do not agree with this. If they're a councillor, they suspend them. That's the kind of thing that you need to do. Or else it looks like you don't mind having those kinds of people in your party.
Exactly. I think that's quite important.
Got some ladies texting, I think, there.
What's that for? Oh, they want to see Christian again. Yeah, they do love him. The ladies do love
Is he a
Christian.
catch?
Yeah, we call him the handsome man because he is very handsome.
Can you show that?
Matinee idol looks. Yeah, I'll show it again then. I don't mind.
Let's show it again.
Cheers. Go on, Nigel Farage! Hey!
Oh, that's brilliant.
Although he's grown a bit of a stubble there, I'm not sure if that's working for him. I may have to have words with him. I think he looks better clean shaven. Well, you know me, I don't like beards. What can I say?
I don't like beards.
She doesn't like beards.
Not
See,
a
there you
fan.
go. Ellie doesn't like
Not
them
a
either. Ellie, thank you very much for this.
Thank
Steve
you so
Baker's
much.
coming up. He's got an interesting beard. We'll talk to him about what's going on in the world in general as well. So we need some news first.
Yeah, we do indeed.
Bit of Edward Hughes with the news. Ellie.
Good morning, I'm Edward Hughes. The most authoritarian PM of all time, Two-Tier Keir, has resigned after less than 2 years in office, citing mounting pressure within the Labour Party, or the fact he's just an idiot. Greater Manchester's former mayor Andy Burnham, Chancellor and freshly elected as an MP, is the clear favourite to become the UK's next Prime Minister, potentially within weeks, with strong backing including from West Streeting. Meanwhile, Britain is sweltering under a major heatwave. The Met Office has issued rare extreme heat warnings, with temperatures forecast to break June records, possibly hitting 38 to 39 degrees Celsius in parts of England and Wales. Other headlines include former DUP leader Geoffrey Donaldson, found guilty of child sexual offences, and calls for more LGBT veterans to claim compensation before a deadline. Remember to like and subscribe. Laters, Tigers.
Mike, I've got the guy who made...
Thank you very much indeed. That was, of course, Edward Hughes there with the news. Nice to see my MG coaster in use. I hope you're also using the Pooch and Bish ones. From TWC, so that's the guy. Yeah, well, I've got this one here. Thank you very much for sending it in. The Bish is over there with Steve Baker, and Pooch has got his own one, I think. So there we are. Very good. Steve, welcome. Good to see you.
Well, Mike, it's great to be here. I want to know why there isn't a Steve Baker coaster.
well, the man who just made it has heard you say that. So let's see if he makes one. You can probably do it for the next time you come in.
Thank you very much for having me back.
Not at all. Very nice to see you. Strange times we live in. I've been talking all morning about Andy Burnham. I suppose we should go back and talk about Keir Starmer briefly before we move on. I mean, I can't say I feel sorry for him. I didn't feel sorry for him yesterday. He couldn't do the job, could he, at the end of the day?
Well, he doesn't deserve much sympathy, that's for sure. Thanks very much. But I did feel a bit sorry for him on a human level, standing there in front of the nation.
Well, it can't be easy,
for being
but then whenever you think about that, or whenever I think about that, I think about all the other people that he sort of persecuted and didn't feel sorry for.
Well, indeed.
And there's a lot of them.
Well, indeed. Yeah, that is absolutely true. He doesn't deserve a lot of sympathy. Politics is a rough business, and I'm afraid when you take hard decisions in difficult circumstances, you're going to hurt somebody. So I suppose the experience of having been a politician allows me to empathise a bit, but I'm glad am I glad he's gone? I would like a centre-right government, a good one, one that knows how to solve the problems that we face. So it's tempting to be glad he's gone, but I'm rather afraid that in 6 months or a year, we'll be looking back wistfully and wishing he was still
possibly
there.
So. The only thing I would say is that I think we all said in the first 2 years of his tenure, or certainly even in the first year, and I said I thought something would happen to him. I didn't think he would last the course because he was so incompetent. Because I knew, like you, that I wasn't going to agree with much of what Labour wanted to do. However, I didn't expect him to be so bad at it.
Well, appointing Mandelson was such a stupid decision.
Yes.
And he was told, basically, in the way that civil servants do, and it obviously did prove to be a stupid decision.
Right.
Between that and his mishandling of a couple of votes to cut spending on the winter fuel payments, and
And also
on
the welfare.
welfare.
Yeah. But everything was a mistake. I mean, he tried to make the best of a list of things like he always used to do yesterday, to say, I did this and I did that, I made the economy grow. No, you didn't. No. We've stopped austerity. Well, you haven't actually.
Well, also on the EU, the public are not stupid.
Yeah.
And when it doesn't matter if you call it what do they call it, a reset, or getting closer.
Yeah.
But the public are not fools. When you subordinate the UK to somebody else's law without a say, these days the public will see straight through that.
Yes. And there's no necessity to do it.
There is
all
not,
these
no.
people that complain about Brexit and say it didn't work and it wasn't the right thing to have done. It's much more difficult now to get to Europe. It's much more difficult to go and live in Europe. Well, all of those things are not necessarily true, one, but also two, are the way they are because of the way Europe has responded, not because of what we've done.
Well, indeed, yes. There's a lot of ideology on the other side of the channel. Yeah. So, for example, things like shellfish exports, that'd be an area where people have been hit hard. But there's nothing changed about our shellfish after we left the EU.
Right.
If they'd chosen to mutually recognise our standards, knowing that they were initially just the same,
right.
If they'd chosen to mutually recognise our standards, we could have had no problems.
And this
that is a bureaucratic choice.
And people moan about, I had somebody on yesterday moaning about she used to go into Spain because her parents live in Spain and now she can't because of the EU rules on 99 days or whatever it is. And I'm like, yeah, but that's their rule. That's the Spanish have made that rule. They didn't have to make that rule. The same with the French.
I think we wanted to end the free movement of people so that we could actually control migration. So I'm slightly conscious we can't have it both ways.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of fair enough to have a time limit. I must admit I would have sort of preferred that we'd gone for 180 to get days so that it was a long but temporary stay.
Yeah.
On terms of the border and using e-gates and so on, that's just a straight up choice in nations.
Yeah.
I've just got back from Greece and Greece like having tourists.
Yes.
So Greece looks after you when you go through the border.
Yeah.
And that
I
is
went to Cyprus
just a choice.
last month, or beginning of this month actually, and I don't think I've ever gone through quicker.
Some of these things are just straight up choices. And if people want to be friends, if they want to be close cooperating partners, they can just do the sensible thing. But the trick here to me is humility plus resolve. And people, there's good literature that shows that is a transformational way to lead. Absolute resolve on our own interests. We want to be out of the European Union, not subject to their laws, non-negotiable.
Yeah.
But have the humility to say, but we're going to look after EU citizens in the UK.
Right.
They're welcome to stay. We will give them their rights to remain. So this combination of resolve on what we really want to achieve, but the humility to treat people right and respect their legitimate interests. If both sides had behaved like that throughout, maybe we could have done a lot better. But of course, the awful truth for the EU is there's plenty of Euroscepticism within the other EU nations, and that's what they're trying to contain.
Yes.
But stamping on it won't work.
And they've never been good at sort of compromise, have they? They've only ever known how to stamp on things. They don't know how to kind of go, well, why don't we just have a friendly conversation about how this could work best for both of us.
It's arrogance, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
It's arrogance.
It's them saying, no, you don't want to be part of our club anymore, so we're going to punish you. And that's what they've done.
I don't want to annoy your listeners again, but I was quite pro-EU before I looked at the EU.
Yeah.
I mean, just for the reasons that people usually are, that the ease of travel and doing business and so forth. But when I actually looked at it closely and realised how it had behaved over the years, how it was behaving, then I became a Eurosceptic.
Also, the expansionism of the EU was something which has caused quite a few problems, I would say, historically.
Oh, absolutely.
Across the region. I mean, when you look at even what happened when I was still a newspaper man, I was in Bosnia during the war. That was an EU problem that they didn't solve. And I'm not blaming them for all of it, but the EU recognised Croatia before the UN did, and then suddenly Serbia went, hang on a minute. Why have you given them country status before we have? Because they've got all the money.
Yeah,
there was a lot of problems there.
Yeah.
And the same goes for Ukraine. And I know that this is a Nigel Farage line, which people have said is rubbish. But, the expansionism of Angela Merkel into Ukraine and the questions that she was asking of Ukraine saying, do you want to join the EU? That wasn't a great... that wasn't a great thing to do in front of Russia.
Yes, well, so on this point, I think two things can be true at once.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no excuse for Putin's
aggression.
Of course,
that's
I know
not
you
what
think
I'm
that.
saying.
Yeah, I know it's not, but I've got to say it because I know what my opponents are like.
Yeah.
So there's absolutely no excuse for Putin's aggression. We agree on that, and hopefully your listeners absolutely do as well. But also, when you threaten somebody's interests, you get a response, don't you? And what does the world look like from Russia's point of view? So absolutely no excuse for Putin. It's a monstrous thing that he's doing. But equally, we should be a little bit more careful about what we do overseas. I mean, I'm afraid Iran, I'm not pleased with how that's worked out. That seems to have been a very expensive adventure to take us back to where we were broadly when Obama was president of the USA. So overseas adventurism generally, I'm
Andy
very
Burnham,
cautious
to
of.
go back to his points of view, does not appear to be much of a thinker when it comes to international affairs at all.
I'm not sure.
He's more or less giving out the idea that he's going to be this kind of local prime minister, because that's his Manchesterism thing coming through. And from listening to quite a lot of people who know him over the last couple of days, they're saying that he doesn't necessarily wish to become like Keir Starmer, this kind of, international statesman figure. He would rather stay at home and send the foreign secretary out to do all that kind of stuff.
Well, do you know,
he won't be able to do, really, will he?
Well, I mean, he won't be able to do that. I mean, in the system that we have, the Prime Minister has to do everything all the time, which is exhausting.
Right.
I must admit, though, I've often thought that there is a case for having great people in the Cabinet and then getting them to do their job.
Yes. I think that's a very, very interesting theory. It hasn't always worked.
It has not. There's a shortage of great people.
Well, I was thinking this yesterday when people were saying, oh, maybe Wes Streeting's now done a deal and he's going to be the Chancellor. Best one in the world said Wes Streeting. I don't know what qualification he's got for that.
Do you know, that absolutely occurred to me. I know Wes, and you know what, on a personal level I quite like him, but I don't think that Wes has any particular qualification to be the Chancellor of the Exchequer. I'm not sure that he has any particular qualification to be the Foreign Secretary, but I suspect he'll have got one of those two jobs.
Yes, but I mean, you can, in a way, you can see Foreign Secretary if you've got a little bit of, charm, a little bit of wit,
he's got that,
a little bit of nous about you.
Yeah.
But Chancellor is a bit different.
Yeah, you ought to understand economics.
Yeah.
And you ought to have some idea of the principles of taxation.
Yeah.
And it'd be nice if they thought taxes were too high.
Not that Rachel Reeves had any of those things.
No. Well, disastrous. But the bond markets will worry about any change of Chancellor.
Yeah.
And that matters because it feeds through to people's mortgage rates. And I was looking at the price of rentals in Wickham over the weekend. It's horrific. We need more houses built. We need more people willing to rent houses out. And that can all be affected by the Chancellor of the Exchequer. The decisions they take on taxation and against landlords and so on really matter in ordinary people's lives.
Well, I was hearing, I think it was Richard Syson was saying he thinks Miliband's going to get housing. They don't think they're going to give him the Chancellor of the Exchequer because they just don't want to go down that net zero route as much as they have been.
Well, if they want to row back on net zero, they have to get Miliband out of that position.
Yeah.
And how do you safely get him out? You either have to completely sack him and leave him in a place where he's
Starmer
not
offered him something else before and he refused it, didn't he?
Well, that's it.
Supposedly.
So he is a zealot for it. Yeah, well, it will be very interesting to see what Ed Miliband gets. I mean, unfortunately, he's quite a big figure in the Labour Party.
They love him, don't they?
Yeah, well, so just demoting him and leaving him on the back benches probably isn't something Andy Burnham can get away with. So the trick is probably to give Ed Miliband a job that's good enough that he'll cling on to it, but where he can't do too much harm. So maybe Miliband gets Foreign Secretary and he can go off and travel the world.
Yeah. Well, he already does that, doesn't he? I mean, he spends a lot of time on planes, considering he wants to save the planet.
Well, yeah, of course it does. Do you know what? He's just taking net zero in its own terms. If you look at Chinese emissions, there goes my microphone.
Yeah.
You look at Chinese emissions, the Chinese increase every year is more than our total now.
Yeah.
I've been back and checked the figures a few times.
Sure
People can go to our world in data and they can check the figures themselves. Well, in such a world, if people are absolutely determined to get emissions down, they need to take the argument to China.
Yeah.
So, I can see why you would want to spend time on a plane. But, being realistic, China is not going to listen to Ed Miliband and turn down their economy.
Not. Also, now he just has to go down to the other side of Tower Bridge and go to the embassy.
Well, indeed, nice embassy they've given them.
Yeah, when is that going to be finished, by the way? Because I want to make sure that I'm not living anywhere near it by the time they start opening it.
Yeah. Do you know? The truth is they're spying on us.
Yeah.
They're spying on us all the time. A lot of stuff is done electronically now. We're all carrying our mobile phones around. Mobile phones can be hacked.
All these Chinese cars, I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but, the Department of Defence came out and said that they would not allow a Chinese electric car to be parked anywhere near their buildings. Which I think is a pretty good idea of a signal that they're not safe to be driven around.
Open sources tell us that the Chinese are using AI and absolutely filling it with all of the data that they've sucked up for years from everywhere. And because of facial recognition and so forth, that means they can track people all around the place.
Yeah.
And it's a big problem for those people who wish not to be tracked.
Yes.
And that's not only, of course, criminals, but there's also people we employ not far from here who would like not to be tracked
Yes,
as well.
no,
It's a
quite.
problem for them as well.
Exactly right. Have you noticed, by the way, and people think I've gone a bit mad here, but I keep seeing them, these Waymo cars driving around, which are, as far as I'm aware, I don't know if they're a Chinese company, but I think they are. It's driverless cars in the city of London, or in the capital city. And I pulled up next to one the other week and looked, and there's nobody in it.
Do you know, I haven't seen
It's
that
the strangest
in London.
thing. And they're quite often they're Jaguars, white sort of electric Jaguars, and they've got this big thing on the top which looks a bit like a lighthouse. And they're driving around the city, and I've said to people, "What happens if you hit one? What happens
Whose
if they
fault
hit
is it?
you?
Yeah.
Do you get out and talk to nobody? You're supposed
Well,
to
that's
ring
a good
somebody?
point. Who do you exchange your details
Yeah.
with? Yeah, it's a great point.
It's a very-
I've no idea. We'll have to check.
And every day now I see about 3 of them, all right, just driving around.
I'm spending too much time with my head down on my phone looking
And
at
some
things.
people have said to me that they're actually tracking the city in terms of they haven't got passengers either. So there's like literally nobody in them, and what they're doing is mapping the city. So for a
Do you know,
future
it wouldn't
kind of contract.
Well, the city's well mapped already, but it wouldn't surprise me if they were just driving around collecting information on who's where.
Yeah.
But some of it seems to me entirely pointless. If people want to know what I think, for example, they only need to ask me or check what I've said. I don't have a lot of secret opinions.
No.
I tend to tell people when they ask me the question.
I mean, it's that new thing now, isn't it? Like they've been doing all for the last 48 hours, tracking back through everybody's Twitter account to see what they said about having an election.
Yeah.
And inevitably, everybody who's not in power wants to have an election.
Isn't it always the same? The government always says no, and the opposition always say not only that they want one, but they're ready.
I'm saying that I think there will be one. What do you think?
Well, they're ruling it out.
I thought they hadn't ruled it out.
I think I read in the Telegraph this morning that Burnham's team are saying they're ruling it out, but...
Well, when he was asked about it, he said that's a bit of a leap or something like that. It was a sort of denial answer.
But if you look at the polls, there was one this morning that says Reform no longer forecast to be the largest party. It could be Labour. Well, maybe if you're Burnham and you look at the polling, you think now's your best moment. So it's
that's
conceivable.
what I think. Because the economy is going to get worse, right? And crime is probably going to get worse. There'll probably be some horrendous event that will happen, which can affect governments.
Look at the popularity of prime ministers. It always only gets worse for them.
Yeah.
Thatcher being an exception, I suppose.
But in the end, they got her as well. I mean, I always say that football managers, newspaper editors, and prime ministers.
Yeah.
As soon as you get the job, you're looking over your shoulder. Eh? Husbands, yeah. You're looking over your shoulders to when they're coming for you.
He might go for it. Honestly, I hope he doesn't. And I'll tell you why. I honestly don't quite think that Reform are quite ready. Bear in mind that this is not to criticise them, just to be objective. They've got to not only fill the House of Commons with sufficient MPs to have a majority,
which is not easy.
Which is not easy just to find MPs.
Yeah.
But they must have enough members of Parliament to have sufficient ministers, unless they decide to simply appoint ministers who are not MPs, which I believe can constitutionally be done, but it would be a major breach of
you don't want to do
Arkin.
too much of it, though, do you?
No, if you ended up with a load of MPs who couldn't answer questions in the House of Commons. Sorry, a load of ministers.
Yeah.
If you ended up with ministers,
if they were in the House of Lords?
Or even if they were in neither house, because I believe it's the case. Dominic Cummings was making this point. I saw in a documentary. He had this conversation with the Prime Minister and the Cabinet Secretary. The Prime Minister can appoint who he wishes, apparently.
I didn't realise that.
Well, so I think it's only a constitutional convention that they have to be accountable in one house or the other.
Okay.
Well, but I'm pretty sure there's not a law on it. So
has it ever been done? I don't think it's been done, has it?
I don't think we've had ministers who are in neither house, no. But Cameron, for example, came back as Foreign Secretary.
Yeah. Well, they gave him a peerage in order for him to do that.
And Nicky Morgan was given a peerage.
There are
and
some
then
people
was
who think
Secretary.
David Miliband's going to get that, and they're going to make him Foreign Secretary.
Well, conceivably. I mean, it's all very interesting, but to focus on Reform, if I may, the trouble Reform have got, they have to find enough. Let's assume that they're going to follow the normal constitutional conventions.
Yeah.
They must find enough members of Parliament with sufficient skill that people can be elected to Parliament and immediately go into the cabinet and perform at a high level. And I'm just not convinced that Reform are there yet. That's a hard job.
It may not be the case, and you may be right. However, I would argue that, well, we haven't exactly had much expertise in the last 2 years from anybody who's been doing any job in government.
Well, that's true, yeah. And
I think people will take the view that how much worse can they be, you're right? And you think the Tories have got themselves into a slightly false dawn at the moment because they won Aberdeen South and everyone
Over
went,
oil, but yeah.
oh, great, we're back, and I don't think they are.
Well, so I think it was a good victory and I'm pleased with it, and I wish I wouldn't want to talk it down. I'm still a member of the Conservative Party, but I do think when you look at the turnout levels,
But I think
there was a low
probably
turnout.
a good thing to be thinking of.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think from a ruthless analysis, that was a victory because SNP voters stayed at home, and because it was a referendum on oil, and of course in Aberdeen people will turn out and vote for oil.
Yeah.
So good on him for winning. I don't want to talk him down. Congratulations to him. But yeah, I think you're right to say it's not a new dawn for the Conservative Party quite yet. But Kemi is more popular than the other leaders.
She is.
Or less unpopular.
Yeah.
And I think she's doing a good job. So at the moment in our country, the voters have got so much to decide, and people will have a big impact. On the point of incompetent MPs, I'd say to anyone, go and support the political party of your choice, whatever it is, and try to get better candidates elected.
Well, the good thing I thought about Makerfield was there was a high turnout, which
Yeah,
is
that
nice
was
to
great.
see.
Yeah, it was a high turnout, but the voters plainly took that election very seriously.
Yeah.
And you may or may not like how they voted, but they turned out in normal general election numbers, and things like the tactical voting. People clearly, it seems to me, Lib Dem and Green voters clearly thought they didn't want reform, they went Labour. Well, obviously, Reform would prefer they hadn't done that, but it does show that people took seriously the choice that they were making, that they wanted rid of Starmer, because there was no mistake over it, was there? People knew if they sent Burnham, that Burnham would be Prime Minister fairly swiftly.
Yeah.
And so they took a really positive decision to alter the life of our country. And I think I would encourage people listening to know this does happen in our country. Your vote does really count. They do all add up, and sometimes it's decisive in the life of the nation.
And what about this Unite the Right movement? A lot of people are coming up with reasons not to do it, and so far the party leaders don't seem to want to do it. However, there are people out there in the general kind of, shall we say, right of centre movement who would like to see it.
Well, this is so you have to ask yourself in politics, what would I like to achieve and what price am I willing to pay to get there, because I will have to compromise.
Yeah.
If you think you can get everything you want with no compromises, you'll be disappointed.
Yeah.
And people don't like that, but I'm afraid it is true.
Yeah.
So once you accept you'll need to compromise a bit, then you have to have a series of difficult thoughts, like, am I willing to be in a party that doesn't always do the things I like? Once I'm in that party, am I going to bite my tongue when it does the things I don't like, because it's going to do some things I do? So you end up with all political parties are coalitions, unless they're very small, in which case, like Restore, people are probably all united behind Rupert Lowe, but it's not very likely that he'll be Prime Minister. So if you, thank goodness, if what people want is to have a sensible centre-right government, we do need to find some way to give all those voters an opportunity to come together as a voting coalition of the centre-right and vote for a coherent, sensible centre-right party that can be quite radical, but do it in a civilised and acceptable way. And that's what we need to do. And it won't be achieved by voting Restore. Sorry, folks. Nigel might do it. It's a tough climb for him. But whether the party leaders can do it, so Kemi's ruled out a coalition, but of course there's one thing to rule out a coalition now, it's quite another to be on the other side of a general election. If Nigel leads the largest party and she has the capacity with the sufficient MPs to get him over the line, well, that's going to be a very, very hard conversation, and they'd have to have a really serious coalition agreement and with some red lines of what could and couldn't be done to support them.
Yeah, and I think that may well be how it plays out. But, I mean, it wouldn't be the first time somebody had to go back on something they said they wouldn't do either, would it?
Well, that's politics, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
I've always tried to, people may not believe it, but I've always tried extremely hard to only speak the truth and to stay what I believe was true and then stand by it. I've had to compromise over Northern Ireland, and that was extremely hard. But I did say it was a hard compromise. I didn't pretend it was an easy one. But yeah, I'm afraid in politics, if you want to get elected, you do have to give the voters a bit of what they would like. And sometimes voters would like things that are impossible, like low taxes and high spending.
Indeed. Steve Baker, great to see you.
It's great to see you,
very
Mike.
much. We've still got your hat over there somewhere.
Oh, thank you so much. I see it now. That's really appreciated.
And for some, it was behind me for a while. Somebody's moved it. I don't know why, but so we can put it back. Good to see you. Thank you very much.
You too, great man.
Coming up at 10 o'clock, by the way, Kelvin McKenzie makes his return to these parts. He's going to be doing a show with Linda Duberly.
He's stuck on a train.
Is he stuck on a train?
Yes.
He could do what, George Galloway once started his show from the back of a taxi.
Did he?
Because he couldn't get in time to talk sport. So
Down the line, yeah.
he can easily do it. Anyway, Linda, I'm sure Linda can hold the fort for him.
She's running late.
She's running late as well. I'm not sure this...
So you're going to hold the fort, Mike.
So maybe I'm going to do the show
You
at 10
are.
o'clock then. Oh, well, it won't be the first time. Intel Lady's going to join us in a little while. Also, this is Armed Forces Week, we're delighted to say. Hugh Andre was here yesterday, of course, talking to us about Squaddy Box, which was a fascinating thing, which is all about helping people who are homeless to have an address so that they could have things sent to them. And we're going to be doing a lot more on all of that. We've got Brigadier Alan Richmond joining Hugh today. Should we do a bit of news first?
Yeah, let's go.
So before we get into Armed Forces Week, let's have some news with Edward Hughes.
Good morning, I'm Edward Hughes. The most authoritarian PM of all time, Two-Tier Keir, has resigned after less than 2 years in office, citing mounting pressure within the Labour Party, or the fact he's just an idiot. Greater Manchester's former mayor Andy Burnham, Chancellor and freshly elected as an MP, is the clear favourite to become the UK's next Prime Minister, potentially within weeks, with strong backing including from West Streeting. Meanwhile, Britain is sweltering under a major heatwave. The Met Office has issued rare extreme heat warnings, with temperatures forecast to break June records, possibly hitting 38 to 39 degrees Celsius in parts of England and Wales. Other headlines include former DUP leader Geoffrey Donaldson, found guilty of child sexual offences, and calls for more LGBT veterans to claim compensation before a deadline. Remember to like and subscribe. Laters Tigers.
Liking and subscribing, yes, thank you very much indeed. Edward Hughes there with the news. What he didn't really say too much about is presumably what is holding up Kelvin MacKenzie and Lyndon Dooley, which is the bad weather that we had earlier on this morning. We had a massive thunderstorm. I don't know whether you guys were involved in that at all, Hugh. I was woken up at 4:20 this morning by this massive thunderclap over my house. And people have already said, stop going on about it like it was some terrible... But it was a really bad storm. It was like one of those storms that you get in the tropics, where it was rolling thunder and lightning, and it was amazing. And so apparently there's trains now that aren't running, and there's roads that are now flooded, of course.
But they work in India.
Yes, and America.
And we built them in India.
And America, funnily enough.
And America, yeah. No, I didn't hear the storms.
No, exactly right. It's Armed Forces Week. We kicked it off yesterday with the Squaddy Box story, which was amazing. And today, Brigadier Alan Richmond's with us as well. Tell us what you've got for us today.
Yeah, I will. And as you know, I always remain pretty non-partisan, Mike.
Yes.
But I've been hearing rumblings about Al Khan's perhaps trying to give Andy Burnham a run for his money. And I think that's really important. The military community, the veterans community, who obviously I'm involved with, our team is involved with, getting an awful lot of feedback about military values, moral courage, selflessness, compassion, knowledge, integrity, these great things. And I just hope Al Khan's does make a run for it, because I think this country now needs a leader who has that those group of values and ethics.
One of the things as well,
straight talking, gives bad news if bad news is required. That's having the moral courage to say things that perhaps we don't want to hear, but we need to hear. And to put agriculture, utilities, infrastructure and the NHS all within a security and defence package. Because if they aren't safe and if they aren't secure, we've got real problems. And someone like Al Khan's, Dan Jarvis, if John Healey, they get that, they understand that. And, that's my sort of slightly political bit that
but I think at the end of the day as well, whether or not Al Khan's would be successful, somebody needs to challenge Burnham, I think, in order to just find out what it is that he wants to do. Because at the moment, we don't know. He hasn't said what he wants to do about defence. He hasn't said what he wants to do about welfare. He hasn't said what he wants to do about anything, really. International affairs, foreign affairs, So somebody needs to just, have him stand up against them, have some kind of debate about what his plan is, I think.
And I think I made some comments on some of the social media platforms yesterday that, much like football clubs, rugby clubs now, you hear about, Jose Mourinho's gone back to Real Madrid to manage this project.
Yeah.
And it seems to me now, I've seen, this will be my 9th Prime Minister since I set up Force Select, and now we served 16 years, 9 Prime Ministers, about to tick that one off the headboard. And it's almost like, you know, the days of having 8 years, whatever, like football managers have gone.
Yeah.
So if it's a project, when we need project managers, and the project right now is defence.
Yes.
And why shouldn't we bring in ex-military people? Why shouldn't we bring in generals, air commodores, you know, admirals, etc.? Why shouldn't we have surgeons, etc., running the NHS? And I think, you know, we need to be more progressive. The current system was invented 200 years ago. That's gone. We now, and if we are now looking at politics as a 4-year project or programme, then bring Blythe Masters in to be the Chancellor. You know, or a former governor of the Bank of England, someone who knows how interest rates, how the bond markets work.
Well, that would be ideal. But
why
modern
can't we?
But modern politics, I don't know whether the armed forces
It's not modern.
Is like this as well, where you get managerial people coming in and kind of running it because they've read something in McKinsey's Guide to Consulting. You know, I was having a go earlier at consultants because, you know, these people move from one industry to another and they don't know much about the business they're looking at, but they know about how to make efficiencies. But they're not. It's not one size fits all.
I was an analyst.
It's not one size fits all.
I was an analyst for 4 or 5 years. So what? I was a second lieutenant for 3 years. So what?
Well, the argument I
knew
made,
diddly squat.
Well,
frankly.
the argument I made was about, you know, we used to have several. These people came in to be consultants when I was at Daily Express, when it was still a, you know, reasonably run newspaper, and I was a foreign editor, and they said, right, we're going to want you to estimate the cost of all of the foreign trips that you make when you send correspondence to places. And I said, well, I can't do that. And they said, why not? I said, well, because I don't know. I'm sending somebody to Albania right now because there's a military coup going on, and I don't know how long she's going to be there for. And so in the end, we agreed. I said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll put down 10 quid. How about that? You know, and when, of course, it ended up costing about 3,000 quid because she was there for about 2 weeks, they came back and said, your estimate was way out. And I went, yeah, it was out because I wouldn't have known it was going to be 3,000 quid because I didn't know how long she was going to be there. She might have been shot dead for all I know. And they couldn't get their heads around it. They were like, well, how do you know, how can you have a budget then? I said, well, you have to have a lot of slack in it.
And the question should be, what is the impact of spending and not spending, investing? And I have these discussions with HR. Oh, we don't want to pay a recruitment fee. It's a cost. No, it's an investment. It's an investment in a person to help your business grow, improve, etc. Anyhow, enough of my rant.
Yeah, I was going to say Alan should speak now because he's come all this way and he's not said anything yet. So Alan, tell us a bit about what you do.
Great to be here. Thanks, Mike. Yes, I served for 30 odd years as a regular and a couple of years as a reservist before that. I mean, we're here on Armed Forces Week. I think it's a good opportunity to focus on defence as a whole and the situation in terms of where we are as a country. I think we need to really generate a proper national conversation about defence, and that doesn't seem to really be happening. And it's a time that is very worrying geostrategically. And I think the chimes that we have now with the 1930s are quite marked. And you know, I do feel that successive governments have underinvested in defence, and we are. You know, I think Teddy Roosevelt talked about, you know, talking softly and carrying a big stick. I think we've been whispering, and our stick has been whittled down to a twig. And you know, we really need to reinvest because there's nothing worse or more expensive than a war. And I think the best way of avoiding war is having credible deterrence,
which we literally don't have any of, really, do we? I mean, I was hearing that if there was an attack of some kind. And I'm not trying to be scaremonger people, but we have enough drones for about a week.
If that. I mean, the Ukrainians are getting through about 10,000 a day.
Right.
The Russians getting through about 20,000.
And who's making those drones that Ukraine have got?
Well, a lot of them are being made domestically now by the Ukrainians. Right. I mean, they are now intending to make up to 5 million a year. But a lot are also being made and resourced across Europe as well.
And presumably an awful lot of them are being made with the money that we're giving them.
Yes.
Whereas we haven't got enough money to build our own.
I mean, I think...
Which doesn't seem right, does it?
No.
Under any metric.
No, I mean, we've depleted all our stocks, and some of that has gone to Ukraine, and that's laudable. But, Yeah, I think the estimates of we could probably have enough artillery ammunition for about 8 days of hard fighting is pretty scary. I mean,
That's
the
not very
Ukrainian
long, is
war
it?
has gone on for over 1,500 days.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make any sense. A lot of it, to me, as well, goes back to the days of, I guess, the Cameron government. And I remember, I mean, I've been doing this for a long time, talking to military advisors, even back then, who said, well, you know, the future of fighting isn't human. You know, it's not really, you know, you're not going to need people. It's all going to be, you know, cyber security, it's going to be drones, it's going to be this and the other. And it's like everybody took their foot off the gas and just went, well, we don't really need the army anymore. And look where we are now.
Manpower is a cost, according to these people. But I don't quite appreciate that the army is...
Is it realistic, though, to think that it can be built back up again? Or not?
Well, I mean, I think when Hugh and I joined the army, it was... The regular army was about 160,000, about 76,000 in the territorial army. So, you know, nudging 250,000.
Yeah.
You know, now we're around about the 70,000 mark regulars and about 30,000 in the Army Reserve. So I think what we're seeing from the conflict in Ukraine is that mass still has a place on the modern battlefield because you actually need people, and yes, that can be enhanced with autonomous systems to hold ground.
Yeah.
And, you know, when you've got senior generals saying that we've got the military capability to take a small market town and that's about it, it's a little worrying.
Right. Well, somebody, I think was it you that said it yesterday, people running around Salisbury playing
That's
Channel
right.
Bang.
Yeah.
You know, that was quite a shocking thing to hear.
Yeah, and there's been instructions coming out of the MOD saying no training to take place that's going to cost us anything. I hasn't been planned a year ago.
Right.
Where's the flexibility?
Yeah.
In this again, but anyhow, let's. I mean, Alan's here to wearing two hats as well.
You're partnering with We Served from another organisation. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so I mean, when I left, and I never wanted to be a soldier, but it was time to leave, and I was looking to decide what next. And actually, I connected with an amazing gentleman in San Antonio, Texas, who had been a US Air Force fighter pilot, retired in his retirement, he ended up getting into the financial services world. And he joined an amazing company in the States that looks after specifically the armed forces community. And when I was talking to him, and I was thinking about my own experiences of leaving the army, it completely hit me how we need to do better in this country to look after all aspects of veterans' well-being. And we focus quite a lot on their health, their sort of physical health, their mental health, but we don't really focus so much on their financial well-being. And so that really has become my new mission. And so I joined a company called Trinity because Trinity has been looking after the insurance needs of the serving military community for 25 years, but it aspires to replicate what they have in the States and create a one-stop shop ultimately for all your insurance, but also financial services, to look after the financial well-being of our veterans.
And is that because they need specific sort of assistance when they come out of the service in terms of where they want to have their financial planning?
Well, yeah, I think leaving is I mean, it is quite a challenging time
Bit of a
for
wrench,
people
I guess,
because they've been within almost their own community, their own bubble. In many cases, they've had their accommodation provided for them, their food, etc., provided for them. They haven't really had to stand on their own 2 feet in terms of their own financial management in the way that perhaps their civilian peers might.
Right.
So I would say that they need a little bit more education because they are not going to necessarily be so financially savvy.
Right.
But what happens when you leave is you get unplugged from those trusted providers like Trinity that's been looking after you for 25 years during your service, and you're suddenly at the mercy of the mass market.
Yeah.
And so what
And
we
it can
want
be
to
quite abrupt, I think, from what you've said in the past.
yeah, and so if there is, and that's why Trinity wants to provide this through life service. So from the moment you recruit, from when you leave and ultimately into your final retirement, it can be your kind of financial battle buddy that's with you on that journey.
Yeah, okay. And so if people want to find out more about what you guys do, how do they do that?
Trinity Insurance Services, and just talk to Trinity, and come and talk to Trinity.
Okay.
If we don't have the products that you want now, it's probably because they're under development, and they will be there soon. But also, what veterans need and what they articulate that need as will help us to design the products of the future.
Okay. And in terms of Veterans Week, Armed Forces Week, what could you be doing better, or what could the government be doing better to kind of raise awareness of it, if you like? Because I said this yesterday to Hugh, if you hadn't mentioned it, I wouldn't have known it was happening. You know.
So, I think the Armed Forces Week was designed as an opportunity for the nation to thank the armed forces for what they do. I think because we're no longer in combat operations, which sort of ceased in Afghanistan in 2014, the armed forces rather drops off people's radar, and I think that is an issue. But also, I think the Armed Forces Day, with a big parade and everything, was, I think for a lot of the serving soldiers, was seen as just another duty. And really, it's how does the nation thank the people that have served? And culturally, we're very different to the States. And in the States, it's so much more effusive.
Yeah.
I've been in a queue for coffee in the States, and somebody slapped me on the shoulder and said, "Thank you for your service."
Yeah.
And I point to the Union flag and say, "Look, I think you've probably got mistaken me for somebody else." They said, "Look me in the eye and say thank you for your service," because they recognised we'd been with them in every major scrap since the Second World War.
Yeah, right.
And so I think really the country needs to find how it will thank its soldiers, sailors, and aviators. But I think that in America, the government sends them to war. The government picks up the pieces afterwards. In this country, the government sends them to war, and we tend to rely a lot on the third sector, on charities, etc., to pick up the pieces. So I think the best thing that people can do is to support some of those military charities, because a lot of them do a really good job.
I think, and there'll be a lot of viewers who I know are really supportive of our armed forces, and I'm forever saying thank you. I'd like to mention two people at the very end who made contact with WeServe yesterday after the show. But as a child, the one thing I looked forward to every year was the Royal Tournament.
Yeah, I remember the Royal Tournament.
And my mother would take me up there to watch the gun
that
races,
was cool, right?
the Marines doing the section attacks, the dog races. I just think Armed Forces Week, I'd love to see the Royal Tournament introduced.
Coming back,
get the King, Prince William, Prince Harry, all serve, etc., to support it, and reintroduce to our youngsters what it is to be part of the armed forces. To see the teamwork, the pride, the professionalism, etc.
Yes, and to be part of Britain as well.
To be part of Britain,
because there's no accident that the British kind of thing has kind of got lost in translation.
You only had to be at Horse Guards Parade like I was last Saturday, trooping the colour. How proud!
I thought of you actually, because you invited me very kindly, but I couldn't come. But
absolutely amazing.
So they still do the military tattoo in Edinburgh, don't they? I think
they do. Yeah, they do.
Which is always a good thing to go to as
but
well.
Unfortunately, there's not really so many soldiers and everybody to do these things anymore, and that's part of the problem. And so we've rather lost the ability to stage those sort of things.
Yeah. Okay.
But to think one area which you will remember, I bought a member, an organisation called Beyond the Wire.
Yeah.
This is where a lady that I'm privileged to know, Ginny Carell, sadly lost her husband and found herself out of the military community, out of the family, children pulled out of school. I mean, it's just dreadful. If you remember, I was then invited to go and interview Rishi Sunak.
Yeah.
And I challenged him with it. And Alan now is an advisor to Beyond the Wire. As is sort of the second thing that I was rather hoping he could have a little bit of time to talk to those viewers out there and supporters.
Sure.
Yeah, I think you've articulated it really well. I mean, bereavement's terrible, whoever you are, but actually it can be really compounded if you're in the military, because if the military is providing you with your accommodation, The military's moving you around, and so actually to have continuity of education, you're putting your children into like a boarding school where they can have that continuity, because as the parents are moving every couple of years, that can become a real challenge in terms of education. And also, when you're a military family, you're very much part of a much larger community, whether it be your own regiment or wider. And with in the case of Gilly, when she lost her husband, Nick, they were sort of given notice on, you're going to be moving out of your military quarter in 90 days. Your daughters are going to be pulled out of their school. So suddenly they lose everything instantly in terms of for her daughters, losing their friendship groups, losing the stability of having that education, and their world was turned even more upside down than it is for anybody else. And I think really the point of Beyond the Wire is to they've launched a bereavement hub now, so it will provide help and expertise to those who are going through bereavement across the military family. But also it's trying to influence policy to ensure that some of those quite draconian measures are softened and made more flexible. So actually I think that common sense can prevail.
Yes, excellent. Well, lovely to see you both. I mean, we're pretty much out of time, but mention
one last thing. Yesterday's show, and this is absolutely a massive thank you and a big shout out to Mark and Erica Keane, who contacted We Served yesterday. They're a family-owned garage in Maidenhead on the Woodlands Industrial Estate. Big supporter of the armed forces. And Mark contacted me and said, the military does vehicle mechanics, technicians. They go, yep. We're looking to hire someone, and we'd love to give a job to a vehicle technician, an MOT tester.
Wow.
So anyone who's watching or knows someone, please get in touch with Keen and Eager garage in Maidenhead. But that, for me personally, and for We Served and our team, that is what this nation's about. A family-owned business, making a difference, supporting the armed forces. Erica and Mark, thank you very much.
Brilliant. Well, great to see you both. Thank you for coming in, and I guess we'll see you tomorrow, Hugh, for another episode of Armed Forces Week. And Alan, thank you very much for you as well.
Thanks, Mike.
The organisation is called Trinity Insurance Services Limited, and I'm Richmond OBE, former brigadier. Thank you very much to both of you for coming in. We're going to end with a little bit of levity, because Intel Lady is here. I don't know if you've ever seen Intel Lady. You've seen her at the live show. I think she may be coming on as Angela Rayner, because obviously she's now looking for a new job with Andy Burnham. Intel Lady, good morning to you. How are you?
Morning, Mike. I am cock-a-hoot this morning. We're celebrating. We're having a fantastic... sun's out and just having a brilliant time.
I didn't think you were as matey with Andy Burnham as you say you are now, though.
Excuse me. We are good mates, actually. We've been mates for many years, and we've been having lots of lovely chats, very cosy chats for the past few weeks, and we've got a few ideas. I've just given him a couple of hints of things he might want to do going forward, and hopefully something good's going to come up for me and a couple of my mates, maybe Louise Haig, and get our Lou back on that front bench. That would be good, wouldn't it? Everyone would love to see our Lou again.
Has she got, how many mobile phones has she got now, Louise? Because she had a few problems with the phones, didn't she?
I think she's all sorted for phones, Mike. And nothing you say today is going to get me down. Absolutely nothing you say is going to... Wait, did you see that lovely picture that we all took yesterday in Westminster Hall? Wasn't that a lovely photo that we took with our...
it reminded me of that picture that Kevin Spacey took at the Oscars. Do you remember? And then look what happened to him.
What are you trying to suggest here? Hang on a minute. No, this is a good thing. This is a good thing. And we are very happy. I think Rachel looked a little bit bothered. Our Rachel, maybe she's a bit, I don't know, maybe she had a bit of wind. I don't know. But she didn't really want to smile too much. But everyone else was trying to get in on that photo. Did you see it? Everyone was there. It was an us Labour's loving. It really was.
I mean, I thought it was a bit unfortunate for poor old Keir, you know, your old mate Keir, who you used to call, you know, your good friend, because, you know, one minute he's in charge and then the next minute everyone's just walking away from him and they've gone over to the other guy.
That's
sad,
politics, Mike, though, isn't it? That's politics. I mean, the world has got to keep turning. We've got to keep delivering for the British people. We were very disappointed with his speech, though, because he did forget those 3 magic words, the whole speech, and we were waiting for 3 breakfast clubs, and it never happened.
He didn't say it.
He didn't say
think
it.
He was upset, though, wasn't he?
That. He really dropped the ball there.
Yeah.
You know, with his emotions and that. We've not seen any emotions from him throughout the past 2 years, but, you know, he did get a bit teary-eyed when he thought about having to spend more time with his wife. So fair enough. I mean, that's understandable. If you've met her, you'll
She didn't look too happy about that, to be honest.
I don't think either of them are too. That was why he was crying, Mike. That was why he was crying. But we all, you know, gave him a round. Well done, our Keir. That was very good. Off you go, and let's move it on. And we were partying, absolutely popping the champagne. We were when our Andy arrived like the Messiah. He walked in, didn't he? It was like a moment.
Is it kind of nice for you as well, because, you know, Keir Starmer sacked you after all, and now he's gone.
He didn't. Hang on. Get your facts straight before you come at me. He did not sack me. I was not sacked. I resigned because it was the right thing to do. And all of that is water under the bridge now, Mike. So you need to move on from it, because nobody's talking about my tax affairs anymore. Everybody's focusing on our Andy, because he is the man of the moment. And he's going to get on so well with Trump. I think they're going to get on really well.
Do you think he'll tell Trump what Manchesterism is? Because I don't know what it is, and you're from Manchester. Do you know what it is, Manchesterism?
It's a vibe, Mike. You wouldn't get it. It's a vibe. You only know if you are from Greater Manchester. You only get it if you are from that area. You will not understand. You don't know the vibe. You only know the vibe if you're part of that clan. And it's very excited to have one of the clan coming in potentially to a number. It's going to happen. I don't care who goes up against him. They've got no. I'm not going up. Just let me be clear.
Yeah,
I am not going up against our Andy. It's not going to happen. I've had words with him, and I think Foreign Secretary.
Well, I was going to say, I saw your video. We played it out a little bit earlier on the show, actually. And you quite fancy a bit of foreign travel, because you quite like all that, don't you?
I do love a bit of an holiday. Yeah. But they loved me in Ethiopia last year. Do you remember that, Mike?
I do, yeah. Ethiopia was a great trip, yeah. What did you get out of that exactly?
What? Pardon? What?
What did you get out of that Ethiopia trip?
Love. I got a lot of respect. Yeah. Respect, because we are missing a lot of respect for us Labour's women. RESPECT. I know how much those people respected me. You could see it on their lovely faces. So it's about time we brought some of that back over here. The British people can start respecting me as well.
Well, you never know. Listen, we did a poll this morning. I just want to show you the result of it, because we're nearly at the end of the show. We had a poll about who should go next, right? Should it be Rachel Reeves, David Lammy, Andy Burnham and Ed Miliband? And it looks like everyone wants Rachel Reeves to be the next one to go. 41%.
Well, we've had to change her settings to about to get sacked. So she is prepared for it. She's on a pod at the moment, charging up for the day, and she'll be preparing for that eventuality. Look, it happens. It happens, Mike. You've been sacked a million times, Mike, so you know what that feels like, don't you?
I do. And it's not always nice, no, Ange. It's not always nice. But, you know, sometimes it is nice to see the people that sacked you getting done over as well.
Do you know who's never going to get sacked?
Who?
Our James O'Brien.
Oh, yeah, they can't sack him, can they?
He's never getting sacked. He knows the right people. It's a good job his father-in-law owns the whole shebang.
Yeah, that's lucky, that, isn't it?
He's got a job for life.
It's lucky. I saw, by the way, that you also had your good friend, fellow Mancunian, Terry Christian, up behind you on the last video you made. He's a great guy, isn't he?
He's a lovely lad, is our Terry. What a career he's had. Everyone takes him dead seriously, particularly after his time on The Word. I mean, you know,
Yeah,
that was
I'm
quality
surprised. I'd be
TV.
surprised if old Andy, or Angry Burnham, as I like to call him, it doesn't offer him some kind of job.
Expect him to be the minister, the culture secretary. I reckon culture secretary. That would be up our Terry's street. That would be definitely.
It would be, absolutely. So, are you going for an early election? Do you think, or not?
I think we just need to see how the land is laying and just see what happens. I mean, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? I just know I've got good vibes. It's all about vibes and hope. That is, now 2 years ago, we were running on change, and now we're running on hope, which is brilliant. We love words, Mike. We love the word, magic words they are.
Hope's a good word, yeah. It's the hope that kills you, they say.
Why do you have to bring the mood down like this, Mike? I don't think we can keep working together if you keep doing this. Stop bringing the mood down. We are on the up. Us Labours are going from strength to strength. And I think that needs to be said more often, frankly.
All right. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you, Ange, as ever. And I wish you all the best. And maybe if you get that Foreign Secretary's job, you know, we can take a trip together somewhere.
That's a terrifying thought, Mike. Absolutely terrifying.
Right, we'll see you soon. Take it easy. Angela Rayner talking to us exclusively there on the Mike Graham Show. What a brilliant, brilliant woman she is. We've just got a quick moment to do Pooch's Pooch, I think, before we go at 10 o'clock.
Here we go.
Here we are.
You ready for Goose's life to change?
Yes.
Goose.
Goose, I have a birthday present for you, okay? You ready? Look, we're not gonna get on a leash, but there's nowhere to go.
Brilliant.
Oh no.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Absolutely amazing. So, big red letter day today, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, because we've just come to the end of the show, coming up to 10 o'clock. Kelvin McKenzie is here. He's going to take over at 10 o'clock. He almost didn't get here on time. UK Live from 10 o'clock.
That's because Burnham's in power.
Yeah, I know. Burnham's in power. It's all turned to the opposite of whatever. Yeah. Anyway, listen, we've had another amazing day. Kelvin, very good morning to you. Good to see you, sir. And we'll be back at 7 a.m.
You're in the wrong studio.
Yeah, you've got to get in the other studio.
Wrong studio.
He's in the wrong studio, it's fine.
See you later.
Yeah, we've got another studio now, especially, he's got his own studio now, Kelvin. So he'll be there from 10, any minute now. I'll see you at 7 a.m. tomorrow. Who knows who will have resigned by this time tomorrow. I want to thank you all for your attention. Thank you very much indeed for watching today, and we will be back very sharp at 7 a.m. tomorrow.